Suddenly, a group of people was summoned to another world. Confused, everyone questions what happened, and among them a school wrote comments that they were on their way to school. A man explains that in recent years, the human tribe has fought against demons, suffering losses, and accumulating debts. In this case, they decided to summon people from another world who possessed power to help. Then an old man shouts that those who respond to the king's call in this summoning will be the great heroes. Upon hearing this crazy story, the summoned individuals become even more confused. Ignoring any doubts, a man explains that they will now measure everyone's abilities. When measuring a girl's ability in the group, everyone is surprised because she possesses the scythe of the goddess, which is an extremely rare ability. An old woman explains that abilities are something everyone gains when they are summoned, as they are powers granted by the gods. The king states that these abilities do not manifest in people from his world, as they are a favor from the gods, and that these individuals are heroes. At that moment, the group starts getting excited about this story. Approaching the girl, the old man says that she has been blessed with a special ability and that, judging the entire group, the summoning was worth it. However, one of the subordinates comments that one of the heroes has no ability at all. This is Itaminami Norio, whose role is to be indecisive. Upon hearing this, everyone falls silent in the hall. Going back a little in time, the human world. In the city center, the protagonist is upset because it was yet another wasted day. Entering the crowded train, he thinks that this is not his will, but rather what he has to do. Completely furious, the indecisive boy enters the train, ends up bumping into someone. However, he realizes that he bumped into something soft. It was actually a man's belly. This man introduces himself as a kind of god, while the protagonist looks around and realizes that he is no longer on the train. In shock, he wonders if he has by any chance died. However, the man explains that the young boy is being summoned to another world because his father chose him. This father, in fact, is none other than the king of the gods known as Zeus. He continues saying that Athena used to manage everything, but other gods complained, and now he is the one taking care of the boy. He introduces himself as Hephaestus, and getting straight to the point says he will grant the young man an ability. However, he explains that he is a novice, and this is his first time granting an ability, but he did his best to create it. Opening his hand, he shows the ability he created, which is called Master of Supremacy. Smiling, he says it may be difficult to use, but he's sure the young man will manage. The Norio does not seem very confident. Placing his hand on the boy, he explains that he put all his heart into creating this ability, and that his wish is for the young man to use it often. Now back to the present and the new world. The printed figures are discussing among themselves about the boy who came to the world without any ability, something that has never happened before. Moreover, the king himself is also in shock, thinking that in this way, the boy will not be able to fight against demons or anything of the sort. Raising his hand, the protagonist asks to say something, and at that moment, the old man panics, saying that there is no way for the young man to return. However, the hero explains that he never said anything about that, while the girl from before asks if there is no way for them to go back to their world. With an indifferent look, a king explains that there is a way to summon heroes, but no way to send them back. But he says that the Demon King's head is capable of doing so, and this is the reason why everyone must fight against his army. At that moment, the indecisive boy says that he cannot do something like that, since he has no ability, which makes the old man furious. However, the boy makes a crazy offer asking if, by any chance, he can get a piece of land. He explains that he does not care if it is far from the city, and that you will cultivate the land and live his life alone. Exuding determination, he smiles and affirms to himself that in this world, he will truly enjoy his second life. Sometime later, a man shows that from that location onward to the end of the mountains, the land will belong to the boy. He comments that the king bought it for him in addition to the money that was given. And at that moment, the boy asks if this territory does not belong to the kingdom. The mustache man explains that this land does not belong to the king, and thus he will be able to cultivate and plant without having to pay any tribute. Upon hearing this, the hero feels relieved, and then the old man asks him to pay the guide's fee because no one survives on air alone. Leaving you warns that no one will bother him whether he's alive or dead. Now alone, the boy reveals that he feels bad that they are giving him all this just because he has no ability. But he quickly changes his mood, and as he looks at his beautiful landscape, he declares that this is the place where he will start his new life. Usually someone would think of going on a grand adventure with the goal of defeating a strong opponent to gain fame. However, the hero thinks that he can live without that, and without the need to fight in order to have a safe life in this new world. As he enters the forest, he considers the possibility of staying in a place out of reach of the king and his group, so that he won't be bothered. Sometime later he arrives at a sort of beach. Feeling the sea breeze, he states that he hasn't found a place better than this. Then he shouts to the sky, and he will turn this little place into his own kingdom. But he understands that, to achieve this, he at least needs to secure a water source. So if he decides to go to the sea to fetch some, However, he is surprised because the seawater is drinkable, is actually a freshwater lake. Looking closely at the lake, he notices the presence of an octopus, even though such an animal does not live on the surface. Nevertheless, the hero doesn't care about logic at all, considering he is in a magical world, so he decides to go all in to catch his meal. Quickly, he manages to grab the octopus and starts exerting force. But it doesn't work, and as a result, the protagonist falls straight into the water. As he gets up with the octopus on his head, he realizes that this water is definitely from the sea because it is extremely salty. The problem is that before, it was fresh, and this confuses the indecisive boy, something he specializes in. At that moment, he decides to approach the water. Without thinking twice, he drinks it and then realizes that this water is actually fresh. Happy with his discovery, he comments that this must be how things work in another world. Sometime later, the boy decides to cook the octopus in salt water, and for that, he needs to make a fire. So if he digs a hole in dry wood to create friction with sticks. Crouched on the ground, he starts rubbing with his hands before throwing the embers onto dry leaves, feeling extremely determined. Then the boy quickly manages to make fire. With that, he successfully cooks his own food. As he eats, he thinks that was strange because the fire started so easily. Even managed to make a bowl and chopsticks. Smiling, he thinks that he never imagined his survival skills were this good. Suddenly, the boy has an epiphany and quickly recalls what the god had said. When he was arriving in this new world, feeling hesitant, he decides to test his theory. With a scythe in hand, he attempts to strike at the air while shouting for his ability, Master of Supremacy, to activate. Surprisingly, the ability actually exists, and in this way, he unleashes a powerful attack on the field. Paying closer attention, he realizes that he managed to cut all the grass without leaving a single trace. He understands that it's as if he had wiped out multiple lives. To be cautious, he decides to test again, but this time by plowing the soil. And with a slight movement, he manages to unleash a powerful strike on the earth, lifting it. Placing his hand on the ground, he realizes that all the work was done and that, on top of that, was perfect. The hero thinks that this is the Master of Supremacy ability, and that, apparently, it multiplies the efficiency of everything he uses. Clenching his fists, he declares that with this power, he will be able to start his farm much more easily. So he begins by planting some strange seeds he got in the city. A short time later, after much sweat, the boy finishes his work. He admits that he has no idea what he planted, but if he can harvest it, he won't have to worry about fume anymore. Until then, you will have to fish. Sitting peacefully while fishing, he thinks that this is a much more relaxed life compared to his previous one. Feeling very happy, he thanks Hephaestus for the ability, and says that when he gets some seaweed, he will offer it as gratitude. However, his thoughts are interrupted because something got caught on his fishing line. Struggling to pull the creature in, Monami realizes that this fish is one of the big ones. However, a wound appears emerging from the sea. As it turned out, she was the one who had been caught on the hook. To his utter shock, the protagonist realized that he had actually caught a girl. But as he looks closely, he notices that she has a fin, meaning she is not an ordinary girl. Struck with awe by the existence of mermaids, he reminded himself that such beings were only natural in a fantasy world. Regardless, the girl bluntly labeled him an idiot. Visibly annoyed, she confronted him and demanded an explanation for his audacity, which leaves the boy embarrassed. Tearing up, the crazy mermaid declares that they must get married since she was caught by him. Reality finally set in for the hero as he realized he had truly reeled in a mermaid wife from another world. She revealed her identity as an exiled mermaid, declaring that the loser must surrender both their body and heart to the victor. Kneeling, she says she never imagined she would be caught by someone like the boy. Through her tears, she expressed her belief that she had become tainted, making it impossible for her to ever return to the sea. Awkwardly, the protagonist denies what she is saying. The mermaid explained that her people have always harbored a deep-seated resentment toward those who live on land. Clearly frustrated, she expressed that being captured by a member of such a despised race was a humiliating blow to her pride. Pointing her finger, she exclaims that she has no choice but to become the boy's wife, and then he must take responsibility. Stunned by the revelation, the young man remarked that he had always heard relationships between different species were quite complicated. He advised the mermaid to take a moment and think things through more carefully. Resting on the ground, the mermaid woman conceded to the boy, acknowledging that her tail would make it impossible for her to compete in the race. Embarrassed, the protagonist insists that's not what he meant. Quickly, the woman pulls out a type of bottle that looks like a Coca-Cola bottle, and decides to drink it. At that moment, a strong light appears. Her fin begins to transform into 2 legs, and within seconds, the mermaid turns into a normal woman. Confident, she explains that she can live on land this way without any problem and that she can also have children. Then she asks the boy if he has any more complaints, and completely flustered, he simply says he understands, and he desperately asked her to put on some clothes. A little later, the boy realizes that he accepted her as his wife in the heat of the moment, but that, in any case, all he has is a plowed field. Meanwhile, the wound complains that the clothes are too loose. So Norio explains that you will get her some clothes she likes later. But he says that the important thing right now is that they don't have a place to sleep, explaining that he just arrived at the land and there's nothing there. However, as he looks closely at the soil, he notices that it is starting to sprout. At that moment, the hero realizes that this happened because of the gift that man gave him, the ability to enhance everything he possesses. Curious, the mermaid woman asks what he planted, and he replies that he has no idea about those seeds. But he states that from this point on, he will become self-sufficient, which confuses her. He explains that they will make their own food, house, and other necessities, ultimately living a humble lifestyle. Hearing this, the girl just says that land dwellers are troublesome, but acknowledges that this is the way of life her husband wants. Showing excitement, she takes responsibility upon herself, saying that she will handle it. But the boy questions what she knows. In response, the mermaid says that she knows medicinal magic, an ancient magica for species, and then she is actually famous for it. Not understanding anything about this world, a protagonist simply asks what she means by that. Using a country accent, the girl says she will show him since he didn't get it. Quickly, she runs toward the sea without her pants and announces that she is going to get her things to live in this place. Walking alone through the forest, the hero understands that this mermaid really wants to become his wife. However, he also realizes that there's no guarantee she will actually return. With a tool in hand, he declares that for now, he needs to focus on building a simple house. In no time, the house is already finished. Excited, he says that this is every man's dream, and then he can't believe he built it all in just 1 hour. Entering the house, the boy lies on the bed, saying that even with this ability, the work was exhausting. He wonders if his fatigue is because of that mermaid. By late afternoon, he concludes that the mermaid probably isn't coming back. However, the mermaid suddenly appears, waking up her new husband. Excited, the mermaid announces that she is home. Curious, the boy asks her where she was all night and comments that he was worried. Showing a bit of pride, the blonde explains that no mermaid needs the concern of a human. Stepping outside, she says that it took her some time to gather her things, and then shows in her tools for performing medicinal magic. She explains that there are various uses for the medicinal magic solutions she creates, and that they are very valuable. At that, the hero asks if he can use them when he catches a cold, and the blonde replies that she can create something to neutralize the symptoms. Then she says that she has something beyond all this, and at that moment, she pulls out a giant fish. The mermaid explains that this fish is a herring, which in this case is a type of fish monster that contains a lot of mana within its body. After the explanation, the girl quickly begins slicing the herring with just her hands, and in no time she prepares the product. Once everything is finished, the blonde shows the completed product, which turns out to be herring fertilizer. She explains that if it is spread over the field, the plants will grow rapidly. A day passes, and surprisingly, the plants have grown at an absurd rate. They grew so much that even the mermaid is shocked, commenting that she never would have imagined something like this. Approaching his harvest, the protagonist picks a tomato and decides to try it. Completely taken by surprise, he starts shouting about how delicious the tomato is and tells the mermaid that this is incredible. The mermaid herself approaches to try it, and ends up feeling something different. Concerned, the boy starts saying that it might not be compatible with her species' diet. However, the woman shows passion for the tomato she just ate, and asks if people from Earth always eat such delicious food. Excited by all of this, she grabs some vegetables and asks if she can eat them. But the hero explains that some of them are not edible without being cooked first. Sometime later, he himself begins cooking vegetables using seawater. Then he hands a bowl of food to his future wife, who tastes it. Blushing after trying it, she says that it is delicious. Seeing this scene, the protagonist himself seems flustered. While cooking, he mutters to himself that apparently he can live with a little noise in his life. The blonde soon asks if people normally eat this, and Itaminami says that it can get even better when combined with other seasonings. In shock, the mermaid asks if it's possible for this food to be even more delicious. At that, she suggests that they should prepare some spices and also plant soybeans to use as condiments. Additionally, she says that they need kitchen utensils as well. And seeing the way this boy acts, the blonde realizes that he is in fact a good person. However, she suddenly notices that she hasn't even asked for his name yet. So she introduces herself, saying that her name is Platt. Wanting to introduce himself as well, the boy thinks about saying his name. However, he realizes that he is in another world and that his real name wouldn't sound cool. So he decides to introduce himself as Kadem and says that it is a pleasure to meet her. And that was how his new life, married to a mermaid from another world, began. Kidden introduces himself and says that he was summoned from another world. While realizing that Platy is not in the room and that she woke up before him, he thinks that even in human form, the girl is still a mermaid, so he doesn't know how she feels sleeping in a bed. The young man gets up, leaves the room, and hopes that the girl is not in trouble. When he finds the girl outside, the boy is startled and asks her what happened, while she shouts that there is someone in the field. Calmly, he realizes that Plato is just referring to the scarecrow, and states that it is something he made himself. Explaining, Caden says that it is an object used to scare birds that might ruin the crops. The mermaid looks worried, thinking that the scarecrow kills birds with a sword. But the boy says it was just a joke, and he continues explaining that the birds will simply think it is a human, and will not come near. But the protagonist is startled when he notices that the scarecrow is moving. Platt asks if it wasn't supposed to move, and the boy reflects that it might be because he made it with his own hands. Curious, the mermaid asks if there is something strange about them, and he explains that he was summoned by the king of the country, but that he is from another world. Because of that, he received a power from the god, and it probably manifested when he made the scarecrow. Surprised, the mermaid asks if the boy is a hero. He becomes even more shocked to see that the girl knows and asks if summoning heroes from other worlds isn't a human ritual. The girl asks if those heroes don't use their powers to fight against demons, and the young man agrees. Concluding, she questions what a hero is doing in this place, and Kidon explains that he retired there. Deep in thought, the mermaid finds it quite interesting, while the boy eats a fruit from the orchard. Platt reflects that weaklings, especially humans, wouldn't be able to survive unless they stayed together. Otherwise, they would be killed by monsters. And Kidon agrees, but he states that he is no different from the others, being from the same race that the girl is referring to. Curious, she asks if the boy is strong or weak, while he thinks about what he could eat for breakfast. He realizes that the girl woke up quite early and asked if everything's okay and where she was. Platt gets a little nervous at the question. Shouting, she says she was in the toilet and accuses the young man of having no manners while he apologizes, driven by curiosity. Caden asks where the girl relieves herself when she's in the ocean. Irritated, she closes her eyes and calls him an idiot with all her might. Trying to calm things down, the boy says that he heard that plankton feed on such waste, and that's how the food chain begins. Still quite annoyed, the girl says that she hates this insensitive side of humans, and that the ocean's food cycle is completed by its inhabitants. She asks him not to bring his crap into another world, and the boy feels embarrassed, apologizing. Concluding, the girl says that land dwellers are not as sophisticated as she is, so there's nothing to be done, and she leaves. A lone kitten realizes that the girl is right, and that he has become accustomed to the convenience of bathrooms in his world. He affirms that it is a desirable lifestyle. But humans are weak against nature, so he is relieved to have plenty with him. However, he does not know how the girl feels about it. Later, a dish with starfish is handed to the boy. He asks what it is, and Platt explains that it is a starfish-type monster that acts as the ocean's filter. The girl says that if they are placed in a box, it creates a kind of bathroom. Determined, she decides to demonstrate and practice, and cuts a piece of her skin. The red liquid drips into the box, and is quickly filtered by this starfish. Desperate, the boy grabs the girl's arm tightly to stop the bleeding and apologizes. He doesn't know what to do with the amount of liquid coming from her arm, and she looks confused. Kidding thinks that if he hadn't caught the girl that day, this wouldn't have happened. The boy starts saying that ever since he met her, she has always helped him. Irritated by the situation, the girl pulls away, and then he realizes that her arm is no longer injured, finding it incredible. But Platt says that he is insensitive and dirty, making Kidon apologize once again. He says that the reason he caught the mermaid was due to the power he received, and that she can return to the ocean. But the mermaid says no, after all. She likes the boy, and for that reason she will continue supporting him, but now as his fiancée. Kidon feels a little nervous, but says he has nothing against the situation. Quickly, he thanks the girl and says that life has become a little easier and more comfortable, but he still has to prepare breakfast. Suddenly, a strange being appears, questioning what that noise was. The being says it senses a strange man nearby. Later, Platt appears wearing new clothes and says that she turned the wrapping paper from her luggage into a new skirt. The girl also says that a wife must look presentable in front of her husband. She announces that she was going for a walk and that she found the dungeon. Explaining, she says what a dungeon is, but that it would be easier for the young man to see it for himself rather than just hearing an explanation. Quickly, she takes him to a location. Hayden realizes that the cave is 2 hours away, and the girl says she found it while he was working in the field. Platt says that the cave is a dungeon-type location, and that they appear when there is an abundance of mana. When he tries to enter the place, something blocks Caden's passage. Startled, he asks what happened and says that he feels like his face was licked by an animal. The mermaid continues explaining what dungeons are, and that many monsters emerge from the dense, condensed energy inside the caves. As a result, these monsters born there will eventually run out of space and invade the land and oceans. Caden asks if that isn't a bad thing, and the mermaid says that's exactly why she went there. Curious, the boy asks if he will be able to do something about it, and she states that cleaning things out completely is nearly impossible. But they will return to the location periodically and kick some monsters out. Wasting no time, the girl says she's going into the cave, and the boy states that he is her husband and will go with her. He's surprised by the cave's interior. Kaiden says that it is completely different compared to the entrance, and that on the inside, it looks like a castle. Suddenly, a black cloud takes over the environment, and Plato says that the monsters are already there. Some bats, wolves, and other creatures appear and try to attack the group, while the mermaid orders her beloved to step back. She throws some vials for the monsters. A magical explosion occurs in the area. Frightened, the protagonist asks if the opponents are burning, and Platy says no. Each monster is punished in a different way. One is burned, another melts, among other things. Plato explains that Tritons can also make battle medicine, while the young man feels like a loser. She decides to keep going, while Caden admits he doesn't know who the bigger monster is in this situation. With not much else to do, he announces that he will leave his wife to handle things after all. He is useless without weapons to use. As he walks, he notices a sword on the ground. Excited about the object he found, Caden isn't sure if he'll have any chance of using it, but he decides to hold on to it for now. He calls for his wife and tells her that she has already defeated some monsters and should return home, but the mermaid refuses. Thoughtfully, she states that something is wrong with that dungeon. The young woman explains that it feels as if the monsters are being guided by something, or that there is something there, leaving the boy confused. Plato declares that there is probably a master in the area. Not understanding, Kidden asks if there is a boss in the place, and she says that dungeon masters are extremely rare. Furthermore, dungeons the bosses are extremely dangerous. But there are only 2 species that can be masters. Before she can finish speaking, a magical explosion happens and a thick mist fills the air. Annoyed, she says that with that fog, there is no mistaking it, and as she is sure there is a dungeon master here. Kidden asks if it's a dragon, but she says it's the other one, concluding that the master is the king of the undead, the lifeless king. The boy doesn't understand, so she explains that he is a powerful and intelligent maid who chose to become an undead during his lifetime, and that meeting him is the same as meeting death itself. Kitten becomes even more nervous and starts stuttering. Nearby, the undead king says he senses a special mana, and that he can turn the boy into a corpse. War magic can miss a release while Platty tries to throw something at the monster. Her attack hits the undead directly, but he manages to heal himself. Terrified, the protagonist wonders how, and the mermaid says that he is an immortal, but she still has potions telling the boy to flee while she handles the situation. Kidding says he can't just run away like that. With the sword in hand, he charges toward the king, declaring that he is the girl's husband as he strikes at the enemy. Platy is completely shocked to see her beloved in that situation. The protagonist shouts and delivers a blow, while the mermaid, desperate, yells for him to stop. Falling to the ground, the undead king says that he surrenders. With few words, he states that he never expected the boy to pick up the secret sword to defeat him. While Kidden realizes what the object truly is, still trying to stand up, the monster makes some remarks about the sword, and the young man assumes it belonged to the undead king. But he declares that the sacred object now belongs to Kidden, and that it has chosen the boy as its master. With that, he has lost the power he once had, and his duty in this world has ended. Now Caden can strike the king with the sword. Even a dead body can be put to rest if the attack is made. Confused, the protagonist says that he is probably not the sword's rightful owner. He explains that he came from another world and received a gift that makes him the master of any tool he uses, and that the sword only reacted to his power. Shocked, the king asks how that could be possible, and says that the gift of the gods is something only told in legends. That if someone received a gift from the gods, they should not be called a hero, but a saint. Kneeling the protagonist's feet, the king of the undead declares that he will offer the boy the greatest hospitality. Not understanding, Caden says, that people shouldn't just go around revering him, while Plitty feels proud of her husband. Curious, the king asks what the boy is doing in that place, and he explains that he is settled in the area, but his wife interrupts him. Hearing her, he asks if dungeons are convenient stores, and she says that they can be convenient if there's one nearby. Excited, the mermaid asks if it's okay for them to visit the place from time to time, and the king says yes. The girl is anxious for that journey. Quickly, she introduces herself as Platy and says that her husband is Caden, then asks who the undead is. Thoughtful, the young man says that, in his past life, he served as an archbishop of a certain church. For some reason, he ended up being possessed while he was fleeing, so he dove into the cave and absorbed the stagnant mana, becoming undead. But he forgot his own name. The couple feels a bit awkward about the answer given by the lifeless king. The man continues, saying that he was just an old man with no reason to live, but now his boredom and suffering will lessen. Kidden invites the king to visit them and says he will welcome him with some vegetables he is growing. Platy is surprised to see her below the calling him master, and he explains that it is because the man was a high-ranking member of the church. The lifeless king thanks them, and the protagonist says that this was how he found a nice neighbor. Leaving the cave, this boy is desperate when he realizes he cannot let go of the sword in his hand. Kitten is happy to finish some project in an oven built with bricks. He explains to Plato that he produced a blacksmith's forge, and he expresses his admiration for the sacred sword and its ability to cut stones as if they were butter. His wife questions the need for the forge since the sword is so good. He reminds her of this gift he received from the dead king. That gift was a mana-infused metal considered very rare. The mermaid became curious to know what her husband would do with the precious gift, but he remained mysterious. That didn't stop her from imagining what it could be. Perhaps a highly valuable sword. Kitten finally completed his secret project. He made kitchen utensils. But Platy doesn't know what a knife and a frying pan are for. He explains their purpose and gives a small demonstration by frying some vegetables. To finish the dish, he adds salt and pepper, and the aroma drives his companion crazy. As she delights in eating the seasoned vegetables, she wonders if frying pans were common tools in his world. Then her dear husband informs her, as if it were nothing, that it was just another one of his creations. The frying pan was made with mana metal, perfect for cooking because it is a good yet gentle heat conductor. Kidding comments that little by little his cooking repertoire will expand, which makes Platy furious. She asks if there are even more delicious dishes. He casually replies that yes, but some ingredients are missing. This information makes her eager to know what those ingredients are, and she discovers that the main one is meat. The cook gets distracted by considerations about why meat is a great ingredient. But his wife doesn't want to waste time and immediately calls her husband for a walk. While exploring the forest, Plato explains a few things to Kitten that leave him scared. She informs him that there are bird-type monsters and mountain-type monsters. The mountain-type ones are the most suitable for cooking. After her explanations, it becomes clear to him that the monsters in this world serve multiple purposes. The conversation shifts to the idea that the mountain itself is a dungeon, given that many monsters live in it. Caden recalls the dungeon they encountered the day before and doesn't want to take too seriously the claim that the mountain is a dungeon. The two are suddenly surprised by several pairs of glowing lights appearing through the mist a few meters away. It was a herd of robust and furious boars. While she was happy to found her meal, he was shaking me in his boots. The monsters are called square boars, but knowing their name doesn't make them any less terrifying. Since there was no other choice, Caden draws his sword and prepares for battle, but Plitty acts as if it were something simple for her. Our hero brandishes his sword and lets out a battle cry, or rather a cry to build up courage. The boars charge anyway. This wasn't what he wanted to be doing. But with no other options, the boars ended up as victims of the sword. The mermaid praises her husband for a job well done. So many boars were taken down that the problem became what to do with them. By combining their skills, they built a cold storage chamber so the meat would be preserved for longer. Kitten is amazed at the improvement in their quality of life. But Platy only cares about eating as soon as possible. Since it was pork, the chosen dish was the most delicious of all. Tone, Kate, Hisu. While Caden savors the thought of the crispy coating on the meat, Platy becomes even more anxious and excited than usual. But the mermaid will have to wait. Her cook, her husband, remembered one more necessary ingredient for the dish: eggs. This time, Platy didn't really know what to do to obtain the ingredient. The solution they found was to return to the forest in hopes of finding a bird-type monster. Kitten felt more at ease with the possibility of encountering a monster along the way. However, his newly acquired courage was shaken by a presence that suddenly filled him with fear. What was that coming from above? What threatening creature was advancing toward the couple? A gigantic and terrifying dragon, legs and arms covered in scales and immense spikes lined up along its back. The visitor, in a rather rude manner, asked if they were the ones who had invaded the dungeon he commanded. Before answering, they sought to confirm whether the dungeon in question was in the direction they had gone earlier that day. The response they received was yes, it was indeed that way. He also confirmed to their despair that he was the master of that dungeon. Kanan is shocked by the information because, according to him, Plato had said that the dungeon had no master. The dragon says his name is Grinzel Dragon Vale, and having no patience for small talk, asks once again who invaded his domain. Upon hearing this, our hero trembles all over and tries to explain to the beast that they meant no harm, that they didn't know the mountain had a master. He then apologizes, promises not to do it again, and asks for another chance, only to receive a merciless no in response. The Dragon Master was truly offended, took it very personally, and sentenced the couple to have their existence erased. Without wasting time, the beast unleashes fury in the form of powerful flames upon the clueless pair. Poor things, they didn't mean any harm. From above, the dragon launched a fire blast and said, "Die." The scene was apocalyptic, the atmosphere burning, and the two had to act as quickly as possible. With a swift movement of his sword, Kitten managed to block the fire blast. This even surprised the Dragon Master. But our hero was even more shocked, while the dragon refused to believe what had happened. Platy celebrated her beloved's feat. The strike not only blocked the fire, but also extinguished it. What a relief. Not only were they saved, but so was the plantation. The opponents' exchange. The first to break the silence was the one on the ground. Once again, he apologized for the incident, but stated that he was ready to fight if necessary. And it didn't stop there. He even challenged his opponent to battle, all the while secretly hoping he wouldn't accept. Finally, the mystery was understood. The sword. The masters of the forest dungeon then asked about it. Yes, it's the sacred sword given to me by none other than the Lich King. Kid N responded. The dragon was outraged by the answer because the true owner of the sword was himself. This information left our hero completely stunned. Right after that, something even more surprising happened. But this time it was the dragon who was caught off guard. Yes, it was the Lich King. He used his power to protect his friends. The beast fell to the ground, dazed, and the king informed them that the one responsible for the situation was himself. Platt reacted dramatically, demanding an explanation. What happened was this. Unintentionally, the old skeleton had told the dragon that the ones who had gone to the forest were the two newcomers. The dragon has stormed off furiously toward the couple's home. Even so, Kaiden felt bad because he considered that he had made a mistake by entering a forest, a territory that was not his. But the king explained that they had done nothing wrong as humans need the ingredients and materials provided by the monster. Moreover, such invasions were common occurrences which did not justify such a commotion. Lastly, it was highly reckless to leave one's own dungeon over something like this. Still unsatisfied, Lich finished scolding the dragon, calling him narrow-minded and unworthy of being his father's son. Now go back to your dungeon and find an opponent worthy of you, the old man ordered. Enraged, the dragon master refused to leave the sword, which had belonged to his father with Kaiden. Preparing for another attack, he demanded to know why Lich had given the sword to a mere human. It turns out that the sword chooses its own owner. Once again, this skeleton came mock the dragon master, calling him a word forbidden on YouTube. Unyielding, the beast still wanted to continue his battle against Kaiden. The Lich King challenged the winged beast to a fight. The latter backed off, making a vague threat as he left. Kid Anna asked his opponent to wait. What could he be thinking? Without hesitation, he grabbed the tip of the beast's tail, which set the creature tumbling to the ground. Outraged by the situation, he received an apology from the human, and even more scorn from the skeleton, and then an unexpected invitation. The cook suggested that his opponent stay for a meal. What, of course, leaves the beast completely confused. Promptly, he offers a delicious dish with a huge steak and some well-seasoned vegetables. A simple dialogue, or perhaps the beginning of a friendship. What is this? Has the dragon a steak? Replies the chef. While Kitten explains his dish, the beast devours everything in one go. Did you like it? Eyes shining, body in ecstasy, and the shout of delicious. Yes, the dish was approved. What follows are many compliments, and requests for more from both the dragon and the mermaid. A strong glow causes a confusion in our couple. The dragon is glowing and shrinking, and what appears in its place leaves them both with their mouths open and hair standing on end. Yes, it's exactly what you're seeing. A modest and well-dressed young woman. The explanation comes from the Lich King. Dragons have the power to transform into humans, but dragon wait the human. Starts with a compliment and ends with a declaration of love. But wait, it's just a song. Her real interest, however, is in the meat. Now Kaiden will have to feed 2 hungry mouths. If I said 2, I was mistaken. Yuma Skeleton digs in, praising the meat's preparation. At this, a chef tries to be modest, perhaps hoping to take a break from the stove. But the Skeleton King keeps showering him with praise. The mermaid and the dragon are sprawled out, bellies full from eating so much. The dragon master, however, states that she hasn't given up on reclaiming the sword that belonged to her father. The problem is, the sword won't let go of our hero. Without any manners, the young woman announces her plan to burn the young cook to get the sword. Platy quickly reminds her that this means she would be left without the delicious steaks. Abruptly, the human transforms back into a dragon, and while reinforcing her threats, also declares that she will want more steak. Half ignoring it, or maybe just being a bit slow. Kidding responds that the doors are always open for future visits. Platy has one last request for the dragon, which surprises her. She asks to take a walk with her. The objective? To attain the eggs needed for her husband's new dish. The Lich King doesn't miss the chance to comment on the chaos of the situation. Kidding, deep in thought, gazes at the sea. He misses fishing. The last time he cast his line into the water, he caught a mermaid. Embarrassed, he remembers that's why he became her fiancé. And to think that all he wanted in this new world was peace, since life had been tough in the previous one. In this new reality, he has an annoying but adorable mermaid fiancé, along with the lifeless king and the dragon veil to deal with. To escape this chaos, the young man fled to go fishing. But he was surprised when a man with fins on his head emerged from the water, because of the resemblance to his fiancé. Kid in a suit, he was a friend of Platty's. Furious, the fishman stared at him. Scared, the hero steered back, emerging from the sea that being called upon his battle companions. An army arose, ready to face Kaiden. As they attack, water splash everywhere. Kidding didn't want trouble, but he got no choice. He raised his blade and struck. With a powerful defense, the sea creatures were sent flying. After putting them all to sleep, the hero panicked. Terrified, Plato arrived and asked what happened. Kaiden was confused and tried to explain. After leading the attack, the fishman called out to Platy. She recognized him and called him her brother. Amidst all this confusion, Kitten tried to understand what was going on. In the water, the army awakens and calls Platy princess. Upon hearing this, Kitten questions his fiancée. If it is true, embarrassed, the mermaid can barely look him in the face. Then she says she will introduce herself properly. The mermaid explains that the leader of the army is Arawana, her brother, the heir to the throne. Indignant at the deception, Kitten states that, in that case, she's a princess. Platy confirms the whole story. She tells her fiancé that she will introduce him to her brother. Leaving Kaiden in shock, the mermaid introduces him as her husband. Arawana and the entire army are startled to hear this. Platy tells her brother that she will not return with him to the mermaid kingdom. The brother of the water woman becomes furious when he discovers they're human. Shot it, and he says that Kedden took advantage of his sister and restarts the battle. The army leaves with the hero, leaving him terrified. Play details her fiancé to fight back, but he doesn't want to hurt his brother-in-law or her friends. August of Wind begins out of nowhere. As the army is thrown away, Kitten watches the scene without understanding. Overwhelmed by everything happening at once, he sees a dragon landing. Irritated, Platy yells at her fiancé. He reacts. Everyone's afraid of the winged monster. Irawana wants to stay and face the dragon, while the army shouts for everyone to flee. As the aquatic beings escape, the winged creature steps onto the water. Surprised, Kitten says he's fine, realizing that the driving came to help him. This strange situation leaves the army leader speechless. Always hungry, the wing being says that he must protect Kaiden in order to get food. Unable to control his anger, Irawana wants to cause trouble and refuses to accept defeat. But as soon as he looks around, he sees that his entire army has full of it. Irritated, the leader realizes that everyone protected their own lives and left him behind. Since only Arawana remains, the dragon says he will turn him into barbecue. But nothing happens because Kidon asks for the sea warrior's life to be spared. To justify his decision, Human explains that the leader of the sea army is his brother-in-law. Trying to unite the family, the hero from another world invites Erdogan to eat. Even with free food being offered, the army leader does not calm down. So before lunch, the hero calls his irritated brother-in-law for a conversation. But proving that he won't surrender easily, Erdogan curses Kaiden for 10 generations and says he doesn't want to talk. This time, Platy steps into the argument and says her brother is right. Truly, there's nothing more to discuss, and she yells at him to leave. Even though they had a disagreement, Kaiden does not agree with his fiancé's attitude. Acting as a just hero, he tells her that her brother did everything to find her, and that she should be grateful. Not wanting another problem on his hands, a human says he wants to make peace with Erwana. Hearing all this play becomes sad. Giving up is not an option for the fishman, so seriously, he steps out of the water. Kaiden watches his movements carefully. When his brother-in-law steps onto land, Kaiden's eyes burn. Desperate yells at the sea army leader to put on land-appropriate clothes. Prepared, Arawana reveals that he brought something to wear. Kaiden's relief is palpable, acting pleasantly. The human invites the sea warrior for a meal. Watching everything, the dragon asks Platy if there is a chance of trying a new dish. Noticing that the mermaid is acting strangely, Vale asks her what's wrong. With a worried expression, she says, fixing his eyes on something, the Finn man is astonished. The house that Kiden built is seen as shabby by him. Indignant, Arawana finds the place too simple for a princess, and the human feels embarrassed. Besides, hitting the couple's home, he shouts that Kaiden is using the mermaid just for labor. Platy gets irritated and asks her brother to look at the other side. When he sees a huge house much better than the previous hut, the seaman is shocked. The entire storage area is reserved for the meat and vegetables the couple gathers. With firm and thick walls, the place impresses the successor prince. But there is still one more surprise ahead. A third house also belongs to the human and the mermaid. In this other place, they make seasonings. Since Arawana doesn't understand what that is, Kaiden explains condiments to him. Taking advantage of the situation, Platy states that she lives with a strong and skilled man. Besides preparing everything they need for food, the space also serves for the mermaid to train her magic. Pulling up a chair, Kid invites his brother-in-law to sit. Seated at the table, everyone can enjoy the afternoon and have some tea. Vale was also seated at the table, this time in human form, appearing as a young girl. Since she has no wings and isn't breathing fire at the moment, she acts like a sulky and hungry child. A deserter's place on the table. Proudly, Kid and watches everyone eat. When his fiancée asks what it is, he explains that he managed to cook it because the harvest turned out great. Silking the mermaid's brother eats quietly. Vale and Plagy also taste the dessert, which seems very delicious. As soon as he puts the spoon in his mouth, the future prince becomes focused. Unable to hide it, he admits that the food is very good. Everyone who tasted the dessert prepared by Kidin says it's wonderful. After treating his brother-in-law so poorly, Arowana is won over by his culinary skills. When Caden says there's no more dessert, he is criticized because everyone is eager to eat more. When you prepare the dessert, the human loss in another world did such a great job that Vale and Arowana desperately need more. Both get irritated and Erdogan yells at his brother-in-law again. Once their cravings settle down, the future Prince of the Seas apologizes. On his knees he admits that Caden is skilled and says that he is like a sage. Embarrassed since he sees that as an exaggeration, the hero hopes for the emotions to calm down. What started as a dispute ends amicably, and Orwana says he wants to leave his sister with her fiancé. Hearing this, the mermaid is overjoyed. This time it's Caden who becomes thoughtful, staring at the siblings. Even with Erdogan's permission, things are not subtle for the human hero. Worried about her fiancé's reaction, Platt asks what's wrong. Speaking slowly and hesitantly, he makes it clear that he is uncomfortable. Since it has been revealed that Plato is a princess, he questions whether they can really be together. Sadly, the young man says that people must have expectations regarding the princess's fiancé. Irritated by this topic, a mermaid yells that no one has any expectations. Unable to control her emotions, Platy declares that she is the one who decides her own life. The only one who can control the woman is her brother. Amid all this commotion, he tells Caden that there are some rules. Calming his sister down, the future prince tries to explain all the regulations. Since it's not an easy subject, Arowana struggles to find the best way to talk about it. Now it's Vale's turn to jump into the conversation. Tug of certain rules among the different races. There is a political marriage imposed on mermaids. Surprise, Platy's brother questions how the dragon knows so much, and she explains that she has to be informed. Even if she dislikes it, in shock, Keenan becomes deep in thought. Finally, he understands that humans and magical creatures are at war, and that he was summoned to take part in this conflict. Amid this chaos, the mermaids try to stay out of it, but they need to choose a side soon. Curious, the human asks what happens if they go choose a side. Seriously, the man with fins explains that if they don't decide, the sea creatures will become enemies of everyone. In the mermaid kingdom, tensions are high. The leaders must choose an ally. Tired of all the pressure and not knowing what to do, Platy ran away. Understanding his sister's fear, Erwan allows her to keep living and hiding alongside Kitten. After hating the humans so much, the future prince now says he is happy for the couple. Emotional, Platy thanks to brother. Both out forgetting the dangers they all face, the future prince asks the human to officially marry the mermaid. Awkwardly, the hero responds that he will do it. With no patience, Avail questions whether that will actually happen. Just to be sure, she asks again, looking straight into Caden's eyes. All goofy and in love, he replies that he will seal the union with his fiancé. Leaving the mermaid and the human shocked, the dragon declares that she will get married too. But love isn't the reason. Vale just wants to marry Kitten for the division of assets. Since human lives are much shorter than a dragon's, Shilka has belongings quickly. Aside from inheriting her husband's possessions, she will also have plenty of food. For Vale, being a wife is all advantages. Throwing cold water on her plans, Kitten says he is not going to marry her, since she already had plans for her husband's properties. Vale is stunned. Upon receiving this rejection, she asks why and the human yells that he already has a fiancé. Resorting to ridiculous arguments, the dragon says you can have more than one wife. But Caden replies that for him, just one is more than enough. Lafangi watches Vale, who has no more arguments. Failing to secure a husband, the gold-dealing drive-in starts to cry. If winning him over didn't work, she resorts to emotions saying that she isn't good enough. Through her tears, she asked Caden, "Do you hate me?" Desperate over her exaggeration, Hewan responds that he doesn't hate her and that he will marry her. While Vale celebrates, the hero feels embarrassed and apologizes to his brother-in-law for all of this. Despite everything, Platy remains unfazed because she trusts herself. As they walk along the beach, the mermaid tells her future husband that the kingdom will soon know about their marriage. As soon as the royal family approves the decision, the union can be finalized. Lost in thought, Caden simply replies, "What must be will be." Worried about his lack of enthusiasm, his fiancé observes him closely. There should be a happy moment, but the hero seems sad, so his fiancé asks what's wrong. Without saying anything, he just stares at her. Once again, Platy says she fled her kingdom out of fear of her responsibilities. Then she explains that since he was the one who caught her, their lives became intertwined. Even knowing that it was his fishing rod that brought his future wife Kitten still feels uneasy. Emotional, the mermaid says that she likes being with him. Finally, Kaiden smiles and says that everything that happened was unexpected. Not knowing what to say, his fiancé just waits for him to continue speaking. Speaking with confidence, he says that he wants to keep living with her just as they are. With wide eyes, the mermaid stares at him. The Master of Supremacy is the power the hero received in this new world, and he tells the mermaid about it. Clenching his fists, he says that he is not strong, but that he wants to focus on the life he has now. Looking down, Kitten prepares to speak about the decision he has made. Without hesitation, the human asked the mermaid to stay by his side. Unable to believe her fiancé's words, the woman smiles. Shouting that she will stay with him, she jumps and hugs him. And the distance veil appears, watching the happy couple. Irritated, she complains to them. Grumbling about being hungry, she sits at their feet, insisting on getting food, still holding Platy in his arms. Kidding decides to prepare food for everyone. The three head back home and Vale rushes the hero to cook something. Anything, as long as it's quick. With his eyes closed, the young man from another world says they need help. Not understanding what he means, the mermaid brings starfish that are used for cleaning the bathroom. After explaining that this is not the kind of work human, Caden says they need workers. The crops need to be harvested and can't handle everything alone. Even with so many responsibilities, the hero still wants more. Building another house is his new goal, which excites his wife, but besides the couple, the underworld sensei is also their startling kitten. Worried about this ominous presence on his land, the human asks if something happened. But the skeleton left home simply because he was bored. Since he made an uninvited visit, he even brought a little gift. A mana-infused medal. This gift is so useful that it makes the future husband very happy. This happiness is so evident that the sensei even asks if it will really be useful, while explaining to the unexpected visitor that it will help a lot. Kitten remembers his brother-in-law arguing with him. With a determined stance, the hero declares that he will build a new house, different from the previous ones. Getting an idea of the mermaid suggests that the sensei could help. Without much enthusiasm, Kadim doesn't pay much attention to this idea. But the sensei heard and he is willing to help recruit workers. His enthusiasm is so overwhelming that it leaves the young fiancé speechless. Out of nowhere, the skeleton asks if 10 people will be enough. When the future husband of the mermaid replies that it will, the sensei vanishes. The couple is stunned. After some time with a group of 5 orcs and 5 goblins, the sensei returns ready to help. Since most of them have unfriendly faces, he explains that they all obey his commands. Passing on his power, the sensei orders these monsters to obey Kitten. Feeling a bit awkward, the human introduces himself, stating his name. Everyone stares at him without any reaction. Since Miltwin speaks up, the monster sensei explains that they don't talk. The situation is that they only listen and follow orders. On top of that, they absorb mana from the air as their food. Workers who won't talk back make pretty happy and satisfied. On the other hand, the hero feels uncomfortable with the situation. With all of free labor at his disposal, Kitten thanks the sensei. After all his help, the skeleton vanishes again, wishing them good luck with their work. Clenching his fists, the human prepares to start the job. Trying to break the awkward silence, he speaks cheerfully to everyone. No one responds, and the situation only becomes even more uncomfortable. Heavy tree trunks are no problem for the strong orcs. Meanwhile, the goblins worked manually, cutting wood. As all the work gets done, Caden helps them. When the initial structure of the house is completed, human praises the monsters. Pointing out their abilities, he says that the orcs have the physique for heavy labor. Meanwhile, the goblins are better with their hands due to their smaller size. Observing the work closely, Caden says that the monsters learn from their mistakes. Even though humans and monsters fight at this moment, the hero feels sympathy for them. Hearing her fiancé, the mermaid tells him not to think that way. These beings are created from mana, so they are not creatures with rights according to Platy. Even understanding this, Caden says that everyone should have rights. To try to convince her future husband, the mermaid says that humanoid monsters have wiped out many humans. Deep in thought, the hero still tries to understand if the treatment of all beings is fair. When he realizes how much help he has received, he concludes that everything in that house was built with the help of monsters. But even if he thinks that way, it doesn't matter. Monsters and humans are enemies. At that moment, one of the monsters trips. Attentively, the future husband of the princess looks to see what happened. Letting out a cry, one of the goblins falls face first onto the ground. Running over to the humanoid, Kitten tries to help. As he helps the worker get up, the human asks if he's okay. The goblin keeps looking down the entire time. Frustrated that he can't hear from the monster himself whether he's all right, Kitten helps him up. Out of nowhere, the monster responds, leaving the human stunned. In a timid voice, he says that he is fine. When they hear his voice, a couple is shocked. Kitten steps closer and looks carefully at the creature before him. To confirm that he wasn't imagining things, the goblin speaks again, saying that he is fine. With an intense and unnatural gaze, the goblin states that he is ready to work. Not knowing what to think of the situation, the hero just watches and listens. Another goblin joins in and repeats that he wants to work. Soon, all the humanoid workers surround Caden, chanting that they want to work. Watching this entire surprise unfold in their backyard, the mermaid says that now the monsters have consciousness. It makes no sense for this to happen out of nowhere, and the young human tries to understand the situation. After questioning why the monsters can now think and speak, the fientra realizes that his power caused the change. But in his view, this is not a bad thing. Now that the humanoid monsters can communicate, they will be able to talk properly. Embracing the orcs and goblins, the excited human celebrates the new situation. Joy fills the workplace, and the monsters toss the human into the air in celebration. Finally, the house is built, and human, mermaid, dragon, and monsters all admire the result. What Vale realizes is that a new home was built while she was away if she becomes furious. Satisfied with the dragon's irritation, Platy declares that this is her and her fiancé's love nest. Running inside, the transformed girl rushes to explore the house before the couple. Standing in front of the house, the girl says she has never seen anything like it. Quickly following Vale, Kidden warns her to remove her shoes. He points out where she should place them. Explaining further, he says that shoes can damage the tatami mats. Excited about the place, Vale rolls on the floor, and Plenty complains that she apparently will never leave. Looking outside, the couple becomes concerned because the monsters are still there. All the monsters reveal that they cannot own belongings. They say their original home is in the dungeon. Excited, Kitten says that a lodging for monsters can be built. After this announcement, the Fiente explains that he wants to expand the house and still needs help. He asks the monsters if they can assist him. All the humanoids respond with a resounding yes. Celebrating the work once again, they toss the human into the air. Platy reminds them to build the love nest. This task is assigned to Gavi Kichi, the most skilled orc in carpentry. Before long, the work is completed. Caden shows the new bed to his fiancée and tells her as a gift for her. All the cotton they grew was used for the tatami and also for the new bed. Since everything is ready, the fiancé tells the mermaid to lie down. As she settles into the new piece of furniture, he watches closely to see her reaction. Buried in the sheets, the mermaid shouts that she loves it so much she is speechless. Kneeling beside his fiancé, the human apologizes for the time she had to sleep on the floor. Enchanted, smiling, and the flushed cheeks, she looks at Caden with gratitude. Gabi Kichi observes the couple's reaction after all the hard work. Grateful. The mermaid smiles and thanks the monster as well. Feeling shy, all Gobekachi does a smile. From inside the house, the future husband promises to do his best from now on. Out at sea, a ship approaches the shore in the couple's home. A man seemingly exhausted gazes at the horizon. Soon he sees a ship in the distance approaching. Surprised, he starts wondering what this could be. A large traditional house stands out, impressing with its elegant design. Both boys wore looks of pure astonishment as they observed the peculiar sight before them. Exuding an air of confidence, the long-haired man spoke with pride regarding the special circumstances. Looking puzzled, one of the boys let out a bashful laugh while lost in thought. Seated together at the table, the group began deliberating on several pressing matters. Caught off guard, the boy responded with a look of pure confusion and a hint of embarrassment. The other boy spoke with a steady voice, opening up about a matter of great personal significance. He highlighted the boy's distinct strengths and individual qualities. The conversation eventually turned toward the topics of marriage and gaining the family's blessing. With a look of concern, the boy questioned the complex relationship between humans and magical beings. He sternly outlined the various complications associated with a political marriage. As heated arguments expose deep-seated group conflicts, the imposing king commands attention from his throne to announce a major decision. Caught off guard, the boy reflected on the situation as he listened to the details of the forced marriage. Sitting at the table, the young man stared forward with a pensive expression while his friend replied in a tranquil tone. Reflecting on the words he just heard, a faint nostalgic smile spread across the boy's face. With a cup in hand, he spoke with an air of confidence and expressed his sincere gratitude. The atmosphere shifted when a small man appeared at the door with an urgent warning. Though the youth tried to explain with a relaxed laugh, he soon found himself looking on in confusion. A small man suddenly bursts into the room, his face filled with panic as he warns of an impending enemy attack launched from the coast. Visibly intimidated, the boys questioned the orcs and goblins they were locked in combat with. They were left in disbelief, as this location was supposed to be the country's most closely guarded secret. A massive, enigmatic ship soon comes into view, identified by observers as the vessel belonging to the magical creature. The young man rushed toward the fallen orc, calling out to him with clear concern. She checked in on him, asking if he was doing all right. A mysterious woman stepped forward with a faint, enigmatic smile, drawing every eye as her gaze radiated a strange glow. York remained lost in thought, still questioning her true identity. He spoke up with some hesitation, suggesting that it might be Astra's Mu. Reacting with sudden fury, the woman shouted at him, demanding to know what he was thinking. Initially flustered, she quickly regains her composure and authoritatively reveals her true identity as a demon lord and one of the 4 heavenly kings. Pointing to the ground, the orc explains that it is an army of skeletons led by magical creatures. Another man revealed that she had been captured while attempting to end their lord's life for good. Startled by the sheer number of soldiers, the young man inquired about his total defeats, which only irritated the young woman as she felt ignored during their heated debate over the scale of the attack. The long-haired prince questioned her, curious as to how she had discovered that location. While freeing her hands from the restraints, she remarked that they simply wouldn't understand. This was how she managed to free herself, noting with a sly smile that everyone had clearly underestimated her intellect. Sword in hand, the long-haired woman explained that she had been sent to eliminate the bride thief. She discovered the young saint and leveled her blade at him, maintaining an imposing stance. Her overwhelming power is on full display, proving that even her own allies are terrified of her when she's on the battlefield. Desperate to prevent an assault, the brothers struggled to restrain the long-haired man, only for a skeletal figure to emerge and complain about the commotion. To the brothers' absolute shock, the man is introduced as his new sensei. Looking frantic, the young man desperately points out that the king is no longer alive. The king questioned her further, seeking to confirm if he had correctly heard her claim about attacking the Holy Lord. She found herself increasingly bewildered by the unfolding situation. A winged creature suddenly appeared in the sky, striking fear into everyone below. Platy suddenly appeared, looking visibly worried as she shouted for deer. Terror gripped the young woman as she realized she was facing a dragon, but the creature quickly explained he was only in the mountains searching for eggs to prepare kankatsu. Filled with concern, he asked if everything was all right and inquired about the whereabouts of his sister Platy. While the long-haired woman remained on the ground, the dragon explained that it had spotted a ship in the distance and decided to investigate. The dragon declares that anyone who harms her master will also have to face her as an enemy. After getting her attention, she offered an apology. He attempts to strike up a conversation with a woman named Asterisk, who seems visibly startled when he addresses her. The onlookers watched as he explained that if they released her, they would no longer be able to maintain their hostility toward one another. Visibly shaken by the news, Asterisk's eyes widened as she struggled to regain her composure and asked not to be insulted. Raising her blade, she insisted she wouldn't depart until they faced each other in a duel. Rather than agreeing, he countered by offering her a proposal of his own. Platy stared at him in disbelief as he announced his new path in life. Vele, the dragon, interprets this as a sign that she should incinerate the woman. Driven by resolve, the young man chose to take on the challenge. His expression shifted as he realized that, despite having powerful allies, his human limitations still left him vulnerable to defeat. She waited with an expectant gaze, anticipating the arrival of that moment. With a look of genuine shock, she revealed her sword, Drishwarts. Everyone seemed scared and unsure if she fainted or just laid down to be used as fertilizer for the fields. After taking a stroll with Astris in his arms, the dragon returns with the news that the ship abandoned her. Upon returning home, Vale was questioned about her reasons for serving her master, but she chose to leave the inquiry unanswered. Lowering his voice as if sharing a secret, he remarked on how delicious the master's cooking truly was. She returned, accompanied by two women who wished to discuss a particular matter with him. Visibly irritated, Platy demanded to know what had occurred before lashing out at the woman and ordering her to leave. The women attempted to explain that they had only arrived after being discharged from the military. Fear gripped the group when Astra declared that she alone had been expelled. Platy and her fiancé exchanged a skeptical glance. A visible sense of discouragement washed over her face. The crowd watched their interaction closely as they positioned themselves to attend to the lady. The dragon gets annoyed with all the talking and threatens to heat things up. He grew flustered as he tried to grasp whether she had actually been fired, leaving the nearby girls terrified by the intensity of the exchange. Keeping her gaze lowered, Astris recounted how she had failed in her mission to retrieve the princess. He is confused when the mention of a dragon in the middle of the battle comes up. Expressionless, she states that her title was revoked. Platy appeared remarkably composed as she finalized her decision to send her back. One of her companions explained with clear frustration that the sudden last-minute nature of these decisions was what had forced her into this difficult position. The other claims that there is always something being plotted and that this time she suspects Saravion. Sad Astris admits that since she is pathetic, she is the one in the wrong in this story. All of them start crying in despair for despite their devotion, she was expelled, and despite everything, she confirms that she needs to start a new life. Unconvinced, Platy questions why she thinks she must take responsibility for what happened. A horde of skeletons is battling an orc, and there is doubt about why the dead king and the dragon are following him. Astris dropped to her knees and pleaded for a chance to work for him, clenching her fist as she demanded to know the truth. He was caught off guard when she asked why he had agreed to let her work alongside him. Embarrassed, he admits that even though he accepted, she might not understand the reason. He states that when the time comes, he will confront them. The boy's appearance seems that of someone determined. With an ironic tone, Plato confronts him about how his attempt to help might be in vain. Then he declares that, as long as the three women are with him, there must be no juice spillage. Immediately, the twins react in surprise at the decision that they can stay together. Lowering her head, she appeared to silently accept the conditions of her stay. The boy looked on with a visible sense of superiority. Her companions understand that this is their master's way of resolving the situation. Astros gives a look as if expecting a request to be made. The three begin arguing over who should make the request while the master feels embarrassed. It is requested that the three work in the fields. She assures them that her skills are also useful for this kind of work. Observing from a distance, the boy watched as one of the girls held up a hoe, explaining how the tool is used to dig furrows for planting seeds. To his surprise, he noticed that they had fully understood the instructions given to them. The hose repeatedly strikes the exact same spot, leaving the onlookers in the background visibly bewildered, while one of the girls assures them that they can leave the job to her. He shows an expression of admiration as he watches the scene. In a fit of fury, she announced her decision to serve the great saint, regardless of the duties involved. Adopting a serious tone, she instructed Astros and Belina to plant the seeds in the holes, making sure to maintain exactly 30 centimeters of space between them. Understood, they reply as they begin working with focus. While working in the field, Aster winced from the strain on her back, but her discomfort was quickly replaced by curiosity as she discovered a strange object on the ground and picked it up for a closer look. Belina let out a terrified scream, realizing that something wrinkled and very much alive was moving beneath the soil. Both of them shouted in shared disgust as they reacted to their discovery. Transitioning to a new assignment, she confidently assures them that the task is a perfect fit for a warrior of her caliber. Astra responded with confidence, telling the others to leave the matter in her hands. She realized she could use this as a way to finally move past her embarrassment while out in the field. Suddenly, a shout rang out, alerting everyone to their arrival. The situation escalates as the boars charge forward with unwavering determination. Astra confidently assured Belina that they would catch their targets, even offering a wager on their success. The characters surged forward, ready to face the opposition. Even in the heat of an intense and action-packed battle, he remained completely bored. The warriors readied themselves for the assault, showcasing the specialized equipment at their disposal. Belina watched in amazement, visibly stunned by the overwhelming display of power. Intrigued, he asked for his thoughts on why the items were not forged from mana-infused metal. Platt maintained a calm demeanor as she explained that they were all composed of metal. Hastur carefully analyzed them, contemplating their purity until she finally grasped the underlying truth. These specific tools were precisely what they had been missing. Still unsatisfied, they noted that these beings were composed of the same material as the items they had been examining. Standing their ground on the battlefield, they remained resolute in their goal to take their enemies down. With the battle concluded, Platt offered her thanks as the group took a moment to acknowledge just how formidable the boars had been. Astra surveyed the fallen boars as Platt urged the group to pick up the pace. Platt moved with haste, preparing the boars for transport. On their return to the village, dinner is being prepared, and the young man comments, "Perfect timing, they're back." But warriors appear downcast and the young man asks with concern what is wrong. He listened intently as she explained how the day had taken an unexpected turn. The group gathered around, listening intently as the young woman shared her feelings regarding her arrival and the loss of her title. Astris took a moment to reflect on her current situation, deeply feeling her own lack of power. The twins seem to understand what she's trying to say, listening with encouraging expressions. Offering a reassuring smile, the young man encouraged her to have more confidence, reminding her that she possessed a unique power known as charm. Astra remained silent and still as the rest of the group shared a rare moment of hope and unity. As the group gathered for dinner in high spirits, he announced that it was finally time for everyone to eat. Platt reacts with vibrant excitement as the meal is served, prompting the young man to suggest dining outdoors, an idea the entire group quickly embraces. Platt gathered everyone around the table to present the meal, which featured boar served alongside a ginger and tangerine soup. Astra regarded the meal with suspicion, but after taking a bite, she softly admitted it was delicious. As the others sampled the food, Plato was overcome with joy at the flavor, and the entire group shared in the excitement. Seeing them so united and satisfied, the young man smiled and expressed how happy he was. They shared their meal while taking in the view of the night sky. With a basket of vegetables in hand, Astros inquired if there were any other chores that needed his attention. One of her companions proposed that they spend their time pulling weeds and tidying up the house. While lounging on the ground, Platt nonchalantly remarked that if someone isn't going to work, they might as well sleep forever. Clearly irritated, Asta responded that she would be the one to take action in that case. Smiling, she explains that she is currently fulfilling her duty to watch over the house. Everyone is gathered around a plentiful table in the garden, sharing a light-hearted and joyful moment. Platt emerges in her mermaid form from the sea, joking about returning to that form from time to time. The young man comments that he has noticed she feels better in the water than on land. He is surprised by how attentive she is. He reflected on the disappearance of the fish and noted the monsters that were born within the caves. Plenty explains that the ocean is home to many beneficial monsters, and he decides that he can't let her venture into the deep waters alone. While she describes a monster she hopes to avoid, the creature appears genuinely puzzled. A little gulp of Goldracoke helped him enter the ocean. She admitted that she had already anticipated this possibility. While handing him the item, she carefully explained its proper use. However, she quickly reminded him that swallowing it was out of the question, and must chew it completely. He still does not understand if he can truly breathe underwater. Her transformation seems to have reached its completion. With her mermaid tail, Plato calls out to him. They met their end together, drifting through the water in a final display of companionship that highlighted the serene beauty of the ocean depths. Platt looked on as her partner made a rather unusual choice. She seems concerned while he reacts in an unexpected way. There is a dialogue where she notices something strange in the surroundings. As the salt and minerals are mixed together, the tension in the air begins to mount. Clearly uneasy, he asked what was about to arrive. He has glowing eyes and a fierce appearance. A massive sea monster appears identified as Renil, resembling a giant leopard-spotted eel. The battle against the monster begins, and Plato uses magic to restrict its movements, while she and her partner devise a plan to defeat it, with a special weapon after Platy's preparation. He manages to land the finishing blow. She displays a confident and happy expression, praising her partner for his success. She attentively observes an underwater scene while beside him. Platy points upward, announcing the completion of their attack. She suggests they return home immediately, but he hesitates and seems intrigued. While holding his sword and cutting some seaweed plate, he watches him. He comments on the excessive growth of the seaweed, and she mentions that they are useless for magical herbs. Identifying the species as wakame, hints that it might be useful for a culinary dish. The young man prepares a dish with seaweed and eel, calling it Izuka Iwakami soup. She tastes it and reacts enthusiastically, praising the refined flavor and crispiness. She commends his cooking skills, saying that the taste would surprise anyone. She states that she respects him even more. However, he humbly attributes his success to the help of those around him. The scene blends humor and warmth as they interact with confidence and admiration. Everyone is gathered in a friendly atmosphere. The mammoth flecks on his recent life, while the woman watches him fondly. He appears flushed, thinking about something important. Then she approaches and calls him dear. Looking at her, he is surprised to be sharing an outdoor meal. He proposes that they spend more time together, and she is surprised by the proposal. Both agree and express happiness. A storm emerges on the dark horizon, with a view of a dreadful castle towering above. With everyone gathered in a conference, the leader comments on an important decision. A man confronts another about choices, and the elder explains the situation with seriousness. The leader demonstrates power and authority, while he is intimidated by an item and trembles in fear. The leader appears, calling out to the Lord. Desperate, he begs for forgiveness. Kneeling, he listens, instructed to regain his composure until his leader returns. A clothed man hands over a paper with the coordinates of transmitted magic. The leader, is Blackcloak billowing, declares that there are moments when they are carried away by passion. Momoko Ekisaka is a young student who is transported to another world. She reflects on her normal past life, as monsters appear advancing in a threatening group. The young woman confidently wields a weapon and shouts as she attacks. She finds herself in the midst of battle chaos, reflecting on how to use her powers to help, and remembering that they are a special gift. She starts to think about the hardships of living in this world, and the memories of modern conveniences she lost, how life in the new world is tough and lacks comfort. She recalls another character without skills, and remembers a striking phrase, "Without skills you will perish." The king values those who possess divine abilities, and she reflects on her importance and difference. Holding her object, she is determined and awaiting her challenges. The young woman runs toward the battlefield, reflecting on her ability and determination. In an intense display, warriors face their enemies. She attacks with force, taking down opponents, and declares that her ability will be the strongest. Warriors comment on the strength of the enemy, how the Demon King's army seems endless, observing the chaos of the front lines. She decides to protect the world with all her strength. A focused determination appears in her expression. Momoko comes face to face with a massive winged creature, and warriors watch the dragon in fear. The warriors mention that the dragon brings destruction, as someone questions why the monster has appeared. The dragon appears with a look full of power as the atmosphere of tension dominates the place. She watches the dragon, senses the threat, and reflects on how her ability might not be enough. The warriors are afraid and suggest retreating immediately. The dragon seems ready to attack everyone. Someone shouts that he has come to destroy everything. Surprising everyone, the dragon began speaking, saying that he came to deliver a message to all inferior tribes. He declares himself as Grinzel Dragonvale, a ruler. The humans are incredulous at his words, and the dragon mentions that he is there under his master's orders. Causing panic, a dragon grabs a woman. Someone recognizes Commander Astros in his grasp. The warriors order everyone to follow the dragon. Grinzel warns them to choose their words carefully. He concludes by saying he spared lives due to superior orders. He threatens to destroy entire cities with a single breath, and demonstrates his immense power with an explosion in the sky. The warriors react in terror to the impact of the demonstration, and declare that everyone must respect his master. Grinzel orders them to remember his master's name and warns that becoming his master's enemy means becoming his enemy as well. The young woman watches the dragon as he leaves, promising to show no mercy next time. A man reflects on the name Caden, and other warriors question who the saint is. Everyone watches the dragon flying away. Someone mentions never having heard of him before, and expressions of doubt and curiosity dominate the scene. A well-organized rural farm. The young man appears, eating at the table. He expresses satisfaction with the homemade food. He stands up excitedly, ready to work. He declares that he will do his best in the fields. Suddenly, a mysterious man appears. He asks if by any chance he is Caden. The young man looks surprised and uncertain. The man reveals himself as Lord Zeden and questions who he is. In shock, the young man can only mutter a confused hi. The girls enthusiastically call for kin. They show off Astro's first hunt, excited that they now have meat for dinner. She comes face to face with the Lord. The man, surprised, asks why the woman is there, since she left the squad without saying anything. He remarks that she was his best commander. Astros tries to respond but stumbles over her words. The girls pressure her to speak, and the young man senses a tense atmosphere. She confesses that she failed to find the princess and was publicly humiliated by the dragon. She then says she intended to resign to avoid bringing more disgrace, but the man refuses to accept it, saying he needs her. The woman becomes embarrassed and those around them are surprised by the man's words. Sometime later, everyone gathers to start the meeting. Zeden introduces himself to everyone again. Kidden stumbles over his questions, then apologizes, saying it was his first time. He states that his duty was to lead the nation in war against humans until his last days. Plenty comments on how difficult that must be. He agrees, saying that's why he needed the commander by his side. Embarrassed, she says she does not deserve such kindness while her attendants rejoice. The young man asks if he could not forgive the woman since he is a lord, with the other refuses. She was sentenced to exile for her failure, and he was not there to help as others wanted her position. Currently, they blame her for angering the dragon, and the demon nations are in turmoil because of it. When he returned to the castle, Asters had already left, so if you went searching for her. He finds her in his grasp and thanks her for being there, then tells her never to leave him again. Platt asks if she likes him, but the woman starts making excuses. Grinzel, out of patience, tells everyone to shut up. Shouting, he tells Zeden that as a demon lord, he can do whatever he wants, and he calls him a child. The woman states that the girl is not a child, but one of the calamities of that world. Hearing this, the man is paralyzed. She continues listing what she has done for him, and the young man scolds her without success. The Lord says he is indebted to Kitten and should take the warrior with him. Then he stands up and challenges Kitten to a duel, as he must prove his warrior spirit. Panicking, the young man says it is unnecessary, and his companions comment that it wouldn't matter. Since he is the master of Grinzel and another calamity chosen by his own undead king, they declare no chance. Asterisk confirms this information, but the young man states that the woman does not belong to him, so she's free to decide. For as she arrived, she was lost, but upon hearing the Lord, she knew her place was by his side. So, have you asked a woman to be honest about her feelings for the man just as he was? She becomes emotional and the girls are happy. She tells the Lord that she will always be by his side. The other man asks again for her to go with him as she accepts. Everyone focuses on the slip-ups as the injustice of the four kings has finally ended. However, Platt asks everyone to wait. She apologizes but says that the Lord's man was too naive. She states that the other demons expect her to marry him, so she introduces herself. It turns out that her father received a petition for them to get married, leaving the man in a panic. He turns to Astros and says he didn't know about this. The young man comments that it makes sense for them to form an alliance against the humans, and the girl repeats what was written in the letter. She says that she is already married to Kitten and starts listing points, as if someone wanted to weaken the Lord's authority. After that, everyone thought of the same person. Platt confirmed that he had dispatched the woman to retrieve her, intending to eliminate her once she arrived. Zeden comments that he couldn't take her back as it would make him look weak. She explained that his loss of support would force him to step down, ultimately paving the way for his rival. Remaining unmarried was seen as a direct disregard for the nation's future. Fortunately, the girl had already devised a strategy to bring the entire situation to a resolution. She says that they cannot return as lord and subordinate, but must get married. Hearing those words, the two were caught off guard and left feeling visibly embarrassed. The girls get excited upon hearing about the wedding. The man expressed his hesitation, noting that the idea of a wedding felt far too rushed. The girl then spoke up, inquiring if they were facing any issues. He says no, so everything is settled, as this would be the worst outcome for the person plotting to overthrow them. Anyone aiming for greater influence would naturally want to secure an alliance by having him marry their daughter or sister. The woman asks what they should do, and the other starts thinking. First, they needed to exchange wedding vows before God. They must stand before God while making their vows, as an idea of fate would stand in their way. After reflecting on how things worked in his own world, Caden asked the girl for an explanation of how it was done here. With a simple command, she signaled for them to begin. In an instant, the undead king appeared, catching the Lord completely off guard. Seeing him, the man starts believing what he was told, and the young man asks the mermaid why she called him. She says the entity would witness the wedding since he was a great priest when he was alive. He intended to ensure that their vows of love were witnessed by God himself. The entity says that both of them are demons, but when he was alive, he was human. Noticing this, she kneels, saying that she made a mistake. Different races worship different gods. Humans worship Zeus, mermaids worship Poseidon, and demons worship Hades. While still punishing herself for the mistake, the priest says he will see what he can do. He explained that over the course of a millennium, he had amassed vast knowledge and dedicated himself to studying prayers. With everyone ready, I begin. The entity begins granting them blessings, and the atmosphere of the place changes completely. In his prayers, he asks for blessings to be bestowed upon them, and for them to be purified. Everything darkens and the wind spreads. The young man is startled, and the girl says she feels a heavy atmosphere passing over the earth's surface. Amid the dust rising to the heavens, something takes form until a god appears. His halves the god of the underworld, leaving everyone in shock. The priest intended to offer a prayer and create a secret space, but ended up going too far. Hayes says he has been materialized into this plane, and it has been a long time since that happened. Kneeling, the Lord speaks of the war, and that there is nothing to worry about. The god asked why he was summoned. He introduces himself and asks for forgiveness, leaving Kid impressed by the scene. He explains about the wedding and how they sought his blessing, but accidentally summoned him instead. The man continues to apologize and hate, he says, that since the undead king was involved. He likely should have heard about it by now, but he didn't seem to mind. However, in granting his blessing, his wife must be his first and last. Then he asked if he swears to love her for the rest of his life, as Zeden says that this is all he has ever wanted. Hayes is satisfied with his words and grants them his blessing. After giving his blessing, God disappears. Caden thinks that the gods are surprisingly kind. Renzel is irritated by the noise, and the king says he will be more careful. However, those blessings now grant them divine protection. Besides good health, anyone who tries to sabotage them will suffer divine punishment. The Lord says this has become the greatest proof of love he could show his people. He thanks the saint and Platy because his dream of marrying the woman has come true. The one who says she will never forget such kindness. And the young man feels embarrassed. Zeden tells him to go, as the woman must be presented as queen to the nation. However, she refuses the offer. She says she is thinking of staying a little longer. He and everyone else are confused. Grinsel shouts for her to go home. She asked why she wouldn't return now that they were married. The young man comments that it would be a loss and asks why. Astre says that she has rebuilt herself with guidance, and now wants to learn how to be a wife. Zegen understands and then turns to the saint, asking if he could let the woman stay there for a while. He says he doesn't mind, but doesn't understand how he could help. With that, the Lord asked to stay as well, believing his people would be fine for a while. Thanks to the dragon, both factions are occupied. Until then, his troops would be dispatched. The dragon responsible for all of this was Grinsel. Kitten tells them to make themselves at home and thinks about building them a house when the girl interrupts him. She asks if it was really okay since someone was already plotting against them. She says that if they left things as they were, another group might also try something. But the man tells her to relax. He had already considered it. The young man says that such foresight is expected from a king, and she gets annoyed. Grinsel continues, saying that he is strange and asks how he arrived without a ship. Zegen says he used teleportation magic, leaving the young man surprised by the method. Belen also knew how to use the magic and had left a note with the coordinates for the Lord. The other woman hugs her, congratulating her. Says that being separated from them frustrated her. Astros thanks her and comments that everything there was thanks to her, which enrages the dragon. Platy asks if other demons could use the magic to get there, but the man assures her that the coordinates were encrypted, and only the one who wrote them could read them. Besides that, the location was blocked from general knowledge. The demon races use that area, but powerful magic covers it. When he teleported, it was all or nothing. But thanks to Belina, he succeeded, so they wouldn't be able to trace it. Kidden wonders who couldn't place a magical barrier there. The undead king says that only a dragon could have done it, and everyone turns to look at the girl. She confesses that she put up the barrier after kicking the demoness out. Kneeling before the girl, the saint asks if she had been thinking about him that much. She says yes because she wanted food all to herself, but others kept coming, diminishing her status. Belina comments that in the end the girl didn't hate them. The young man pats the girl's head, thanking her for her concern, and she becomes happy again. Excited, the saints suggest celebrating the wedding, and Vale's efforts with the feast. The undead king asks if you can join, and the couple thanks in once again. The feast is prepared with plenty of food around it. Everyone congratulates Astros and Zeden on their marriage. Everyone waits in anticipation as the man tastes the food. He says it is delicious, making the young man happy, and Vale gets her own plate of meat. She becomes so excited about tasting it that she loses control. Transforming into a dragon, she breathes fire, but her master scolds her. The demon lord says he has never eaten that kind of meat before, and the young man explains that his wife hunted it. Platy prepared it with magical seasonings and everyone helped. Hearing this, the dragon says, "Is their duty to serve their master and her?" The princess says that her dear's cooking is unique, and the man comments that it's something even the royal palaces don't have. He's not surprised that the dragon wants to keep this place a secret. She asked Caden where he learned to cook like this, and the young man explains that he lived alone and cooked for himself. Thanks to his ability, he can recreate ingredients and cuisines that are not native to this world, so if he is happy, they are enjoying it. Feeling a bit uneasy, Aster asked if his cooking was meant to be kept a secret, and Vale confirmed that it was. However, the young man firmly denies the claim. She then dropped to her knees, preparing to present him with a request. She asked if he would act as her tutor, teaching her how to become a proper newlywed wife. The sudden request caught everyone off guard, leaving him as the only person in the room who wasn't stunned. Infuriated by the request, Play lashes out, questioning how the woman could ask such a thing of another person's husband, while Vale firmly refuses. As the realization dawned on her, she grew visibly irritated. The young man complimented her, expressing his admiration for her talent in both harvesting and cooking. He acknowledged her status as a queen, suggesting that Kaku would be able to provide the assistance she needed. Nevertheless, she remained adamant that becoming the Lord's wife was absolutely necessary. The young man commented on the woman's sincerity, causing the man to pause and reflect. He then inquired if he could also participate in the training at that location. Intrigued by the surroundings, he expressed his desire to join the couple's training sessions as well. Beyond the modest house, the intricate collars and overall construction were truly remarkable. Having understood the woman's reasoning, he aimed to strengthen his resolve to support both her and her husband. He remarked that a couple should provide mutual support, drawing a parallel to the way the saint cares for others. Clearly impressed, the girl remarked that he was unlike any of the other kings. Zeden mentioned they were relying on him once again, and the other man expressed that he was placing his trust in Zeden as well. A while later, the Lord inquired about his progress, earning high praise from the other man. Astros arrived on the scene, notably wearing an apron. She carried the food over, leaving the man visibly impressed by her. The group gathered around the table, offering a moment of thanks before starting their meal. As they enjoyed their meal, the girls took a moment to compliment the woman on her cooking. Feeling revitalized, the group was surprised to find the king in tears. After inquiring about the name of the meal, the young man noted that she had been responsible for most of the work. Given his expertise as a master swordsman, handling smaller blades like knives came naturally to him. While the others still had much to learn, she was already receiving recognition for her progress. While one girl questioned what else was required, the other noted that they were nearly finished. After deciding to learn how to sew, she inquired about the Lord's clothing, and he explained that he had received them from the saint. Stunned, she questioned if he was the one who crafted them, and he confirmed that he was. Drawing on his experience as a man, he was able to craft clothing for the others. He began to consider crafting one specifically for Platy. He presented the fabric to the girl, who was instantly captivated by its stunning beauty. He reported that he had discovered some silkworms. He took it upon himself to raise several of them, which eventually allowed him to produce the fabric from their larvae. To everyone's surprise, she stood there holding the item in her hands. Badami was thoroughly impressed, asking if she could use the material to craft clothes for the girls. Having grown up in her parents' tailoring shop, she was naturally well versed in the craft. She requested to take charge of the mission, and the queen agreed to provide her support. With the preparations complete, they began crafting the clothing, and the tailor requested to take Platy's measurements. She was left puzzled as the young man doubted his own abilities, knowing the priority was to finish the princess's attire before crafting clothes for everyone else. At that moment, she suddenly removes her clothes, shocking the girl. Puzzled by the commotion, she struggled to understand why everyone was reacting so intensely. Astros clarifies that for both their kind and humans, taking on such an appearance is strictly considered a crime. Overwhelmed by panic, she questioned why no one had bothered to warn her. The rest of the group simply pointed out that she had never actually asked. Upon closer reflection, she recalled her brother's consistent wardrobe and began to view his choice of clothing as formal attire. Badimi insists on taking the lead, promising to showcase some incredible outfits, and despite her confusion, she decides to go along with it. As her measurements were being taken, She instinctively began sucking in her stomach. When questioned, she simply claimed her frustration stemmed from eating too much food. When the queen's turn finally arrived, the other girl's remark about being too full clearly irritated her. Eventually, they completed the beautiful sea-inspired skirt, much to the delight of both her and the young man. As he approached Kate, he offered her a sincere compliment. She then considered lifting her skirt to show her undergarments, but discovered that this action was also prohibited. She mentioned that her brother's involvement hadn't been an issue, prompting him to consider tailoring some clothes for his new brother-in-law. After observing the situation, Grinzel suddenly launched a fireball directly at Platty. Caught off guard, she listens as the young man questions whether he is acting out of jealousy. However, the girl interjected and asked them to wait. Surprisingly, the flames failed to cause her any harm at all. Vale pointed out that the material possessed anti-magic properties, suspecting its durability might even outclass standard armor. Upon being questioned, Baidami denied responsibility and insisted that the silkworms couldn't have been behind it either. Grinzel questioned his master about his actions, only for the master to respond that he had simply nurtured them with love. He began to consider the possibility of crafting some clothes for the girl. She explained that the garments evolved as they bonded with him, eventually serving as a protective shield. This moment marked the creation of yet another legendary set of armor. Insisting it was a matter of style, the girl asked him to craft one for her as well. Appreciating the durability of his new gear, the young man considers having the girl tailor an outfit for the king, who is once again caught off guard by the suggestion. As the queen looked him over, she noticed that his clothes were in tatters. He suggested that they must have simply gotten caught on something. He was disheartened by the damage, but the woman reassured him that she could mend them. Astri had only recently taken up sewing, so her skills were still quite unrefined. The man expressed his gratitude, deciding to entrust them to her care. His friends looked on, clearly fascinated and pleased by the unfolding situation. Witnessing their genuine happiness, the young man decided to let him keep the outfit on for the time being. The human king proceeded to cast a curse upon the dragon. Because of him, the war is at a standstill, leaving them unable to act. A man says they need to find out why the dragon is there, and the army has been ordered not to move. He calls them cowards, then asks about the dragon's master, but they have no information. Drinking. He calls them useless. The man spills his fish juice and irritated orders another. Leaving, he wonders how the king drinks something so foul while the latter laments. The king is there to end the war, which is why they use all the country's mana to summon heroes. Besides mana, if they defeat the demons, they can exploit their land. Stirring his drink, he asks the other if the dragon's master really exists. The other man says he has doubts, but if they manage to make the dragon appear again, it will lead to inevitable annihilation. Thinking about this, the king orders them to find Caden. Having him on their side would mean victory. He orders them to form a team and use all their resources in the search. With a smile on his face, he says they will find the young man. Then humanity will claim its victory. At the young man's house, the couple had been there for 2 months and had learned many things. But they should return to the demon country. However, before that, the man suggests they wield the sword again. Upon picking it up, he feels something strange. The Aemon sword is restless, as if it is resonating with something, leaving the woman frightened. They go outside to call for Kitten, who asks if something has happened. Seeing the sword in the young man's hand, the man is astonished. He asks what it is, and the other replies that it is a useful sword that he used to cut men of metal. Plenty appears saying it is a secret sword. Kay didn't have a plan to return it, but the sword wouldn't let go. She speaks of the man who destroyed, and he comments that he had no choice since he didn't know his own power. Zeden mentions a legend that his saints bestowed power could surpass even a hero. Then he asks if Caden could be one of the heroes summoned by the human king. Kidden confesses it is true, but since he had no combat abilities, he chose this life instead. Aster's comments that it must have been difficult, but as she shows a sprouting seed, she says it wasn't. The Lord is impressed by this, and the young man says that the gift he received has been useful for a peaceful life. He understands, but his power was not meant for labor. He says he can bring a maximal potential out of everything he touches, but that does not mean he is strong. Zeden dares to say that there is no one in this world stronger than him. That power given by the gods of the human race could prove his superiority and allow him to return to their kingdom. But the young man says he has no intention of doing that. He says he doesn't want to be rude, but he is not affiliated with any side and belongs to no one. Because of that, he was able to marry Platy. The Lord agrees and says that without him, things could have gotten serious, and the mermaids would have joined the fight. He says he believes his existence is of great significance to this world. Extending his hand, he says he hopes everything works out. The other man shakes it and agrees. Zeden comments that it is time to deal with those who are celebrating his absence. It is an opportune moment to gain the nation's support. Kitten is happy with the news, but Vale asks why the girls are staying behind. They say that by staying there, the king might return. She transforms into the dragon, scaring them. Covering her mouth, The young man tells them to go back and gather food, while Belina is responsible for connecting the worlds. The king thanks them and asked about Badmi, and as a friend of the other, she also decides to stay. She asks to continue making clothes and catches Aster's attention. She shows the clothes she received made by the other, making the demon king fall in love. Emotional, she thanks her friend and her husband calls her to go. Looking at them, they say they will meet again. The girls cry at the farewell, and the young man wishes them good luck. Inside the portals, he even says he never thought he would resolve the war peacefully. But the existence of the saint made him realize that it was not just a dream. Turning to his wife, he asks if she will lend him her power for his dream. Smiling, she says she certainly will. At home, the Lord would like to know how strong the sink is, but there is no way to measure it. He then says that sumo might work. The young man explains the concept of the sport. Zeden questioned if they would continue trading blows until one of them was physically unable to move. Kidding explains that they are able to hold on to one another. Yet the confrontation unfolds without any physical strikes, such as punching or kicking. He understood the plan, though he noted that it seemed quite difficult to pull off. Despite their physical struggle, neither of them made a move to seek shelter from the rain. Without warning, the knowledge of several techniques began to flood his mind. In one swift motion, he seized the man's arm and slammed him to the ground. Clearly flustered, he immediately began to offer his apologies. Just then, the king arrived on the scene, demanding an explanation for the situation and the demon king's unexpected presence. A few minutes later, the king and the prince were locked in a duel within the makeshift arena. As he watched them, he summoned Kubo and ordered him to gather all the men. The competitors stepped into the ring one after another to begin the sumo matches. Everyone was in high spirits, clearly enjoying the moment. Sumo wrestling soon became a staple activity for the men on the farm, where the prince established himself as the undisputed champion while the saint noted their impressive leg strength. Back at Caden's home, the announcement is made that the bread is finally ready. While enjoying the meal, the girls were quick to compliment both its flavor and texture. He explained that bread is a fundamental staple in his world, noting that flour is a versatile ingredient used for many other purposes. This marked another addition to his growing skill set, and Vale wasted no time in pushing him to produce more at a faster pace. However, before moving forward, he planned to recreate the quintessential staple food from his original world. Identifying the dish as rice, he satisfied the group's curiosity by describing its white, granular texture and a mild sweetness that set it apart from bread. Platt grew visibly anxious upon hearing those words. When the young man asked what was troubling her, she responded by requesting a few adjustments to their surroundings. While the ORT team managed the construction, the goblins were assigned to handle the fieldwork. Badami takes charge of the sewing duties, while Belina oversees the management of the portals. Whenever the situation demands it, they make sure to support one another. While Bela focused on repelling invaders and constructing irrigation channels for the crops, the entire community remained occupied with the heavy workload. They committed their entire workforce to preparing the wheat, as the process required intensive manual labor. The girls confirmed the truth of the statement, allowing the other to continue her explanation. Stress explains that her responsibilities are strictly limited to handling medicine and food fermentation. The revelation left the young man completely at a loss for words. She began detailing each of the sectors one by one. She is the one held accountable for these duties. Overwhelmed, she cries out an apology at St. Neil's, admitting she can no longer handle everything on her own. Driven by his own goals, he failed to take her heavy workload into account. She offered her reassurance, confirming that everything was fine. In the midst of their conversation, Plato's brother suddenly made his appearance. Confused by the situation, he asked for an explanation of what was happening. As the two looked his way, the young man confessed that he had been a terrible husband. This development only served to fuel his growing irritation. He stood by the radishes while his sister grew increasingly frustrated by the massive quantity being requested. Still visibly annoyed, she mentioned that it was the priest's personal favorite. He questioned why it had become so popular with everyone. Bale remarked on how good the bread was, while his friends noted that there were plenty of other delicious options to choose from. One of them remarked that this wasn't the demon's specialty, noting that they are typically certain when it comes to dealing with people. After considering the situation, she suggested that her brother bring reinforcements from his kingdom to assist them. If her demands weren't met, she threatened to scale back the production of her pickled radishes. Caught off guard by her approach, he listens as she seeks her husband's approval. Once he agrees, the husband turns to ensure the other man is also comfortable with the arrangement. The girl pleaded with her brother, eager for the chance to prepare some rice for him as well. Acknowledging the difficulty of the situation, the young man questioned whether the other man truly understood the deep significance their land held for them. He explained that while Plady initially despised it, she eventually grew to appreciate it over time. Adopting a serious tone, Arawana claimed his sister was losing her mind, which quickly provoked her anger. When she questioned him, he explained that any ordinary Triton would consider the surface world to be a living hell. While Tritons are unable to survive on land, his sister chose to remain there of her own accord. While her medicine enables her to remain on land, those who sought to do so in the past were met with severe restrictions. Platt urges him to remain in the water indefinitely, but he explains that his diplomatic responsibilities require him to be on land. He ultimately pointed out that even if the medicine were completed, many Tritons would still refuse to leave. This very same medicine is also employed as a method for banishing criminals. Aside from the looming threat of the death penalty, they utilized the medicine to force the criminals onto land, compelling them to walk on two legs. This explains why the land is a living hell for them. However, his sister soon approached him with a specific request. He began to weigh the various scenarios in which she might find some assistance. Fortunately, his sister had already devised a plan to handle the situation. With a smile, she proposed that criminals should be sent there. Both he and the others are stunned by the idea. Irritated, he says his kingdom is in debt to the saint, and that this land is not for exiles, but the saint does not mind. However, he doesn't want to put Platt in danger, even if she thinks otherwise. Vale says she will incinerate anyone who comes there, and the girl threatens her brother with the radishes. She says she doesn't care whether they are criminals or not as long as they come to help. She comments that she will work them to exhaustion and her husband feels guilty. Sometime later, the young man brings the girls. Renzel mocks them for not being properly dressed, but Betami was prepared. The Triton apologizes for the interruption. He introduces the girls Puffer, Lampai, and Rufa. The princess appears and tells the girls to get ready. Seeing the girl, all of them are terrified. Puffer, the Witch of Cruel Cold, is introduced. Lampai, the Witch of Infernal Fire, and Gararufa, the Witch of Plague. The man explains that from today onward, the three of them will serve their sentence working for his sister, Princess Platt. Overcome with emotion, Lampai runs toward the girl, shouting her name, and tries to hug her. She falls to her knees at the princess's feet, and says it has been so long since she last saw her, leaving everyone confused. Still very emotional, the girl celebrates the fact that she can be useful to the woman again, and she states that she is too happy, while the princess asks her to calm down a bit. Confused, Plato asks if the young woman is really a criminal since she doesn't seem like one. Puffer and Gararufa complain about the other witch's behavior and wonder if she has a crush on Prince Arawana. Quickly, the girl denies it and says she simply made this choice instead of staying unjustly imprisoned. Without patience, the bespectacled witch asks what she will need to do there, while Lampy says she will always stay by Her Majesty's side. When mentioning eliminating the filthy ones, Puffer becomes ecstatic and says she will help as well. Approaching the prince, a boy asks what kind of crime the trio committed. He explains that in the kingdom they have 6 special witches and today he brought 3 of them with him. As an example, he says that Puffer focuses on the continuous global flow of mana in the oceans, which is why she could initiate a new ice age. The prince states that extremism is dangerous, so they decided to imprison the young woman. As for Gararufa, she is terrifying and is responsible for the mermaid's magical pharmaceutical association. Because of that, she developed horrifying theories. But the young woman yells that it's a lie and that no one understands her work. Trying to justify herself, the girl claims that microscopic beings hide within illnesses and are responsible for them. Not understanding, the prince becomes thoughtful, while the young man reflects on the girl's mention of bacteria. Still shot in, Gara explains that the human body can remember external pathogens that enter its system and build resistance. With that, antibodies will be produced in strawberry juice, which can be extracted from another body can be injected into the infected person. The prince thinks that someone could meet their end with that idea of injecting other people's strawberry juice. Concluding, he speaks about Lampai and says that she is the most problematic of them all. After all, the young woman used to serve the nobility as an imperial guard. It played his marriage with the reason she ended up in jail, as mermaids were forced to marry humans or demons. Then a noble appeared and spoke with the king, opposing his sister's marriage, and was difficult to ignore the risks of a failed marriage. To attack the princess, the noble ended up claiming that Plato was just another drug maniac, and Lampai was enraged upon hearing such an accusation, and brutally kicked the aristocrat's backside. Before he can finish, the prince is called out by the infernal fire witch, who says she did nothing wrong. Embarrassed, Arawana apologizes to the Holy Lord for the girls being the way they are. The boy asks if Platy is okay with all this, and she becomes emotional upon seeing that he is worried about her. But it's her brother who answers. Nervous, she asks why he's getting involved, and he says there is something else he hasn't told. That his sister is also one of the crazy witches. The Holy Lord becomes desperate, trying to understand what the girl did, and they explain that she was behind the invention of deadly drugs, and so she was named the Crown Witch. Arawana says he is counting on Platy, and that there is no one else who can lead the witches. Lampai is overjoyed to be able to serve the princess again, saying that the place is a true paradise. They explain that the man called Zeden seems to be the owner of the land, and therefore the place is under the control of the human race. At being named, Orkubo Gobonoshin announces that he has finished making the pizza oven. The witches are startled as there are both an orc and a goblin present, meaning the territory must belong to the demon king. A young woman appears and says that it should not concern any of the three witches. They should only work to produce delicious food. But the trio doesn't know who this arrogant girl is who just appeared. While she thinks about answering and introducing herself, an explosion occurs in the skies, scaring everyone. A gigantic dragon emerges from the sky, roaring loudly. The girls are frightened and don't understand why that monster is in the area, while they notice Gera has fainted. But quickly, the Holy Lord manages to control the creature and tells it to behave, inviting everyone to a pizza buffet. A small girl asks what pizza is, while Puffer wonders if the young man is the dragon's master or just a cook. But the princess appears and says that he is her husband, causing Lampy to faint. Suddenly, a new being appears and thanks them for the invitation to the welcome party. To everyone's shock, it is the undead king, and they don't understand why the two global calamities are in the area. The three witches faint, and they decide to postpone the party until they wake up. After a while, the third girl wakes up. Gararufa and Puffer notice that the young woman is conscious. The trio is sitting on beds placed on the floor. Confused, they wonder where they are. Puffer says the house is wonderful with a pleasant scent in the air, and the bed is soft and cozy, while Lampai recalls that they were brought there by Prince Arawana. At that moment, a woman enters the room, happy to see the trio awake, and introduces herself as one of the residents, Belina. Frightened, the girls realize that she is a demon, but soon they are informed that Holy Zeden is waiting for them, and they suddenly remember what happened. A scream calling for Lady Platy fills the room. The infernal fire witch meals again, lamenting for the princess, believing she has become the fiancée of the demon king in that infernal place. Shocked, the woman says that this place is not hell and that her husband is a human. But the young woman rebels, declaring that the man should prepare for her death. Thoughtfully, Yara reflects that the landowner, who is in demon territory, is a human, and Puffer tries to understand what that means. Belena informs them that the place is not under demonic rule. But that is complicated to explain on the play, which states that they are in a total isolation zone. Plato explains that this is the reclaimed land of Holy Kitten. The three witches believe that is impossible, and wonder what would happen if there were a dispute between humans and demons. A child appears and says that they would simply have to tolerate each other, introducing herself as Grinzel Dragonveil. Regaining her memory, the other witch says she remembers seeing the undead king in the area. Then the three of them panic, screaming that it is the end of the world and that everyone is doomed. Belinda intervenes, saying she knows it is scary, but these beings are the ones who help protect the land. With that, Puffer realizes that this place is superior to the kingdoms, and the princess agrees, stating that they can relax and work. The cruel cold witch is irritated about having to work, but Lampai is enchanted and asks if the princess also has to do forced labor, before eating the gasai to show the tree or the house they are staying in. On the way, the witches wonder if they really have to work as cooks and look for ways to escape the place. Then they arrive at a warehouse and Platy says this will be their job. Everyone is surprised by what they see. Puffer asks what kind of smell that is, and the princess states that this is where she processes and prepares food seasonings. The girls are confused about what seasonings are and believe them to be drugs that enhance food flavor. They decide to taste some of the prepared ingredients, and the flavor catches their attention. Happy, the trio says it is delicious and that they can sense a deep and complex taste. Lampai exclaims how incredible it is that the princess is always creating and inventing delicious things. But Platy explains the fermentation process, while Gararufa is ecstatic upon hearing the idea. Noticing this, the princess asks if the girl's research does not involve fermentation, and she confirms that it does. The plague witch is delighted upon seeing soy sauce and realizing what it is, then decides to take a big gulp of the product, but she is stopped by Platy, who says she had thought of doing the same when she first tasted it, but her husband forbade her. Happy but frustrated, Dara says she wants to learn more about the fermentation process, and asks to work there, but Puffer refuses, saying that first they need to learn more about this so-called saint. Then the princess reveals that her husband is an invoker. The witches seem confused, so they explain what it means to be an invoker and his mission in this world. Play explains that the filthy king summons as he pleases, but Herballoven was discarded for having no special abilities, and because of that, he possesses knowledge and skills different from others. Irritated and hungry, Grinzel interrupts and asks if they have finished talking, because they cannot eat without the guests. The pizza is served at the table featuring various flavors. Curious, the witches ask if this is food from another world and examine the dish. Kitten states that you will cut the pizza into slices, while Dragonveil, extremely hungry, is getting impatient. Steved around the table, everyone gives thanks for the meal. Upon tasting the pizza, the three witches experience something they have never felt before in their lives. Seeking to know more, the host asks how it tastes, and Garrus says she is amazed, claiming it is something divine. The young man is relieved to see that everyone enjoyed it. Trying to please Prince Arowana, the man says he also made pickled radishes, his brother-in-law's favorite. The princess announces that from now on she will be able to produce many pickled radishes, and that her brother can buy as much as he wants. He declares that he will visit once a week, and this information surprises everyone at the table. Kitten asks Platy if she wants another serving, and she says yes, after all her husband's creations are always very good. Lampai calls out to the princess and says she doesn't understand how she became so enchanted by that man. But she does seem very happy. The trio of witches goes to bed after eating. Reflecting, they stare at the ceiling and puffers as the food was delicious. Meanwhile, Gareth thinks about how well the dough was fermented. Lampai, on the other hand, thinks about Caden and how he can really work hard. In bed, the three also think about how soft the mattress is and how the fabric used is of high quality. They come to the conclusion that maybe this place relays a paradise. The next day, everyone is already working, and Gara asks Puffer for help once she finishes her tasks. She explains that they are going to preserve the radish and add it to barley miso. However, the content of this second ingredient depends on a microorganism called mold, which disgusts her friend. Still based on this recipe, Prince Arowana will be eating the pickles made by the girls. While still working, the crew cold witch asks where Lampe is, and the other says she went hunting with the orcs since she loves a good training session. In a forest, the girl prepares to face large monsters. She attacks and successfully takes down a giant boar. The orcs celebrate and cheer excitedly, while she thinks that she doesn't train just to show off. At home, while talking with his wife, Caden says that having the three witches around is a great help. Not only do they support the princess and her work, but they also assist Kubo and Gabby Kichi, increasing the time available to prepare the rice fields. The Holy Lord says that growing rice is special to him. That phrase makes Platy thoughtful about what she just heard. She then suggests that they start planting more rice immediately. Later, everyone is standing in front of the rice field. Garrus says she heard that their task for the day is planting seedlings. But Puffer is a bit upset that it's in such a vast, muddy field and asks for a moment to process the situation. Excited, the Plague, which says that she heard from the Holy Lord that rice is suitable for fermentation, and that even wine can be made from it. She goes on to say that it must be delicious, and that she is eager to help with production. Lampai steps forward and says that she will not let Princess Platy get covered in mud and that she will do anything for her. Everyone asks Caden to show them the basics of rice planting so they can start. The man begins explaining and teaching them how the process should be done. After finishing the demonstration, the princess gives the order to start planting. As they step into the mud, Gary yells that it's cold and freezing, but she's encouraged by her friends. Everyone starts planting the rice with great focus. Irritated, Puffer says that it is harder than she imagined, while the others complain that their legs and hips hurt. Suddenly, Badminton faints, and when she's helped up, she says she hasn't slept since she finished making the clothes. Renzel calls them all pathetic and says that she's still a dragon, so she has great strength, and she asks if that doesn't also apply to the mermaid witches with fish legs. She decides to challenge the princess to see who can plant faster, and Platy accepts, saying she won't lose to the little girl. The two start the competition and quickly begin planting. Everyone else watches and is amazed at how fast they are. Additionally, the precision, tenacity, and dexterity of the duo draw the attention of those watching the competition. Suddenly, the princess runs out of seedlings and yells for help, and Lampai immediately rushes into his sister. She arrives at an extremely fast speed, even startling Platy. The others scream in shock and wonder if the batch was delivered by flying. Despite the scare, the siblings are safe and nothing happened. Even so, everyone is surprised and says they underestimated farm work, and that the princess's legs are not normal. And there must be the reason she can do such hard labor. But Platy says she does everything just to eat good food and nothing more. Curious, Grinzel said, as she is eager to know what rice tastes like. Everyone decides to get back to work and finish planting as quickly as possible. Thanks to everyone's help, combined with fertilizer and the magic of the mermaids for Platy, the entire field is completed in a single day. After being cooked, the rice is served to everyone. Attentively, they all look at the pot, trying to figure out what it is. Kitten says that this is what they call rice after cooking the grains, and Grinzel urgently asks to taste some of it. But the princess says that her husband should be the first to taste it. And Belina mentions that Plato put her heart and soul into growing the rice. Her husband is a bit nervous about the whole situation, but due to his wife's sense of urgency, he agrees he eat first. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Caden picks up some grains with chopsticks. He brings them to his mouth, and the princess, excited, asks if it tastes good. Unaimlessly properly, he just mumbles that it does. The young woman realizes that it tastes so good it moved her master to tears, and the witches immediately want to eat as well. Lampai notices that the princess worked hard because she wanted to see her husband happy. and that she feels proud for doing her best, while Puffer says she understands what she meant. Intrigued by his fixation, Platy questioned why rice was so significant to him, and if it was simply because it served as his primary food source. He accepted, motivated by a desire to show his gratitude toward the person who had granted him his power. While expressing his gratitude to Platy, he noticed her troubled expression and paused to ask if she was all right. He continued to remark on how a foreigner was able to live in such a manner. His peaceful daily life was only possible because of the special power she had granted him. He presented the modest offering, asking her to accept the gift they had all worked together to create. He concluded the conversation by asking her to finally open up and share her true feelings. While the boy was heartened by everyone's enjoyment of the rice, he noted that his list of required ingredients had now grown even longer. The princess wondered if adding more ingredients would cause the rice to evolve, a theory her husband confirmed. Vale abruptly cut the conversation short, announcing her return to the dungeon to further increase its difficulty. Kidding questioned whether the situation had any connection to rice. They explained that as a dungeon levels up, there is a possibility for entirely new types of monsters to emerge. To the master's surprise, this yielded an even wider selection of ingredients. Puffer clarified that only the dragon and the undead king possess the unique ability to modify dungeon settings. It's explained that dungeons are space-time distortions born from concentrated mana, making them nearly impossible to replicate through artificial means. Gar soon discovered that the Cold Witch's research was dedicated entirely to the artificial manipulation of mana. The group collectively resolved to give their all for the sake of a meal, while Lampa sought to put her abilities to the test within Lady Vale's dungeon. A little girl is surprised that lower beings want to enter her territory. She says it's fine, but first they need to see if they can get through the various stages she will prepare. A few days later, Kidden claimed he could hear Vale's voice echoing from the mountains. Eager to put their abilities to the test, the group sets off to explore the young girl's dungeon. Lampai was stunned to see the Holy Lord accompanying the group, especially considering he was only a human. She couldn't help but worry if the young man would be able to handle himself in such a place. However, her primary objective there is to ensure the princess's safety, regardless of the risk. Out of nowhere, a herd of square boars suddenly emerged. The girl then requested that he leave the matter to her. The undead king makes his entrance, preparing to unleash a devastating strike against his enemies. The boars vanished in an instant as the king insisted he was only trying to be helpful. A dragon suddenly appeared and snatched the man, announcing its intent to eliminate the foolish player. Regardless, the witches were filled with joy, knowing that everyone had been saved thanks to his efforts. Feeling increasingly frustrated, Wampy began to worry that her status as an imperial guard was in jeopardy. She maintains that her primary responsibility is to serve as Plato's aide. As the group continued their trek toward the dungeon, something unexpected suddenly caught their eye. Realizing they had reached a clearing in the forest, Pletty cautioned her husband to stay alert for any nearby monsters. The witch noted that she could sense their presence lingering in the area. The group was caught off guard as something began to emerge from the grass surrounding them. The child panicked and screamed in desperation, fully believing that the objects were UFOs. The object lunged for another attack, but the group successfully maneuvered out of its path. However, the Holy Lord confirms that the vessel is indeed an unidentified flying object. Meanwhile, Lampai urged the princess to place her trust in her. Eager to assist, Pitten offered to strike the object with his sword. However, the surge of infernal fire served as a clear sign that he was wielding the wrong weapon. Acting quickly, she threw an object at the beast to immobilize it. A massive explosion suddenly tore through the forest. Platy recalled them the girl's use of explosive magic potions was the reason she had earned the title, Witch of Infernal Fire. Upon closer inspection, they realized the monster was actually a lotus, a species of turtle. They discovered that they could simply flip it over. Just as the monster prepared to strike, several tentacles erupted from its body and wrap around the girl's body, making her scream, leaving everyone unsure of what kind of enemy it is. They try to free the young woman. Gabikichi knows that won't work, so he aims for the monster's body. The man strikes, but the shell is so tough. At the handle of his axe breaks, formidable war tentacles began to emerge from the turtle's body. It reached out, attempting to snatch up members of the group. Standing by her husband, Platy declared that it was finally time for the young one to show his true potential. With his sword drawn, he lunged toward the enemy with a rapid strike. After bringing the malicious turtle under control, he immediately checked on Lampai's well-being. Watching the beast closely, the princess identifies its tentacle as its main vulnerability. As Vale approached the group, they remained unaware that the lotus was actually one of the weakest monsters in the region. The goblin suggested fashioning a shield from the creature's shell, but the dragon quickly ordered them to remain calm. Platy expressed her lack of concern, asserting that her primary reason for coming was to conduct an investigation. Overcome with emotion, she asserts that her love is more powerful than even the two greatest calamities, effectively making her the strongest person in the world. Lampai voiced his agreement, confirming that the princess's husband was indeed the strongest. She felt as though her very existence had been rendered insignificant. As the group paused for a brief rest in the forest, they discussed their surprise at how the Holy Lord's power far exceeded that of the undead king. The infernal fire witch expressed her confusion, unable to comprehend why the human kingdom would choose to exile the young man. He clarified that he didn't possess any actual combat skills. He also notes his reliance on a magical sword, suggesting that he isn't actually anyone remarkable. This revelation caught the young woman slightly off guard. Despite the situation, she continued her explanation, warning of the consequences if either humans or demons chose to launch an invasion. This ensured that the princess would remain out of harm's way. As the group resumed their journey, Platt noticed that while the landscape remained largely the same, the temperature was beginning to climb. The dragon explained that the next stage they would face was called Scorching Hell. In this environment, the monsters are at their peak offensive strength. A pack of wolves began closing in on the group, their gazes fixed on them with predatory hunger. The sight of these new adversaries left everyone present in complete disbelief. Known as Helicons, these creatures are regarded as the most lethal four-legged monsters in the region. These creatures are remarkably agile and fast, growing even more powerful as the surrounding temperature rises. The entire swarm of beasts set their sights on the Holy Lord. His actions were deeply unsettling, leaving the girls both worried and afraid. Suddenly, an unexpected development caught both the princess and her subordinate completely off guard. The entire pack yielded to the man, rolling onto their backs in a clear sign of submission. As they questioned the situation, the Death King explained that the Helicons are naturally sensitive to the Holy Lord's power. Kitten immediately began petting the animals, remarking on how adorable she found them all. Meanwhile, the dragon began bracing itself for the next trial. Once the blistering heat finally subsided, the group resumed their journey forward. He realizes that the pack of wolves is still trailing close behind them. They explain that wolf-type monsters rely on a rigid social hierarchy to organize themselves into packs. It was evident that they had already recognized the holy leader. Astonished by the pack's acceptance, the boy began to realize that these animals were far more intelligent than they appeared. Lampai concludes that the dungeon is high level, a realization that hints at potential trouble ahead. Following their talk, they resumed their exploration of the area as the wolves trailed behind them. As the temperature plummeted without warning, the group began to shiver and voice their discomfort. The group had finally reached the dungeon's final zone, a place known as Freezing Hell. While the group focused on the instructions, the Lord glanced behind him, sensing an unfamiliar presence. A massive bear loomed ahead, obstructing their path. This sudden development sent him into a state of panic. The princess identified the creature as the source of the overwhelming pressure she had sensed since their arrival. Sensing the creature's immense strength, the boy noted his desire to avoid as much unnecessary destruction as possible. The king asserted that the boy had no hope of escaping the beast, describing it as a warrior who lived only for battle. As he listened to the explanation, he realized its true purpose was to constantly challenge the strong. The creature lunged forward, beginning its assault. He was now operating alongside the wolves' protecting group. He exerted his strength, effectively crushing the beast. Stunned, the young man had been under the impression that they were all completely loyal to their master, and that you will be able to help them later. Lampy decides to assist, and cast a spell to immobilize the bear. After launching her magic, the creature falls injured to the ground. The girl explains that she struck the monster's that chill's tendon, rendering it unable to move. Everyone decides to head back home. The dragon yells that she won't let things end this way. Kidding asks everyone to wait and ask Platt if she brought the ointment he had asked for. No one understands the question, but the young man says he intends to use it on the bear. However, Lampai explains that the enemy will disappear on its own. Even so, the Lord insists that he wants to save the animal, as he does not believe it was there just to attack the group. The princess accepts her husband's decision and her friend is shocked, believing he is wasting effort on something worthless. The young man bandages the bear's wound and asks it to take care of itself and live a long life. Irritated, the dragon does not understand what nonsense is happening and says he has no choice but to use his last resort. He decides that he himself will be the final opponent, shocking everyone. But the driving clarifies that only a clone with 1/100th of his power will attack. He gives the order for the battle to begin. Then the bear that was being treated suddenly stands up and charges at the driving with incredible speed. No one believes what they are seeing, but the animal manages to eliminate Vale's clone in an instant. Confused Kid and asked why the bear did that, but the creature simply turns away. Or Kubo and Gabikichi explain that, as monsters, they can understand what the beast is feeling. Driven by its pride, the creature viewed the battle as a way to return the kindness it had been shown. The boy figured that it wouldn't be long before he crossed paths with the bear once more. Prompted by the information he shared, the group decided to head home once the dungeon battle had concluded. Vale grew visibly frustrated when questioned about the recent turn of events. She clarified that this was because her dungeon hadn't provided much of a challenge for the party. A brand new dish was officially added to the menu. Thinking of katsudon, the young man excitedly explained that after descending the mountain, they had finally tracked down a bird monster that lays eggs. This development finally allowed him to prepare the recipes he had been eager to make for a long time. With the help of the girl's dungeon, he is now ready to take his culinary skills to the next level. Grinzel was visibly delighted by this, her mood instantly brightening. With the meal finally prepared, everyone was summoned to gather around the table to eat. As they began to eat, everyone inquired about the dish, noting its refined and delicious flavor. Caden saw no issue with gathering eggs from within Vale's dungeon. At the same time, their settlement was becoming increasingly vibrant and full of life. He reflected on the future, considering how the area would evolve over the coming years. From a short distance away, two individuals kept a close watch on the surroundings. One of the subordinates signaled the boss, drawing his attention to what he'd discovered. The man expressed his disbelief that a village could actually exist within that region. Driven by resolve, he announces his intention to scout the area personally. Aileron was officially appointed to take command as the gang's new leader. The story then turns its focus to Hannah and Taro. Caden took a moment to play with the animals, tossing ropes for them to chase after. He detailed how he had begun living alongside the wolves he discovered within the dungeon. A significant problem remained, as the region lacked sufficient food to sustain the entire group. Grinzel inquired whether the master intended to use the entire supply of mincemeat. The young man's plan to prepare dog food for the wolves immediately sparked the girl's anger. She flatly stated that she didn't find the situation amusing. She asserted that she would manage the creatures using her own personal methods. All the while, the young man remained firm in his belief that the wolves were members of his family. Remaining unfazed, he continued preparing the meal, casually using his sacred sword to slice the food. Regardless, Vale stands her ground, declaring that she won't allow this to happen. She even insisted that she would eat the pet food herself. Kitten explained that he had trimmed away the fatty portions to prioritize the animal's health. After adding the vegetables, he proceeded to serve the plates. He noticed that the creatures were thoroughly enjoying the meal. The dragon makes its appearance, requesting that the master enter into its service as well. Left with no other options, the young man instructed him to revert to his human form. He extended his hands, offering his service to the girl. The young girl savored her meal, clearly delighted by every bite. Now that her palate was finally satisfied, she refused to ever return to eating dog food. The flavor was truly beyond comparison. From a short distance away, the band of thieves kept a watchful eye on the enigmatic village. As they inspected the trees, they realized the fruit growing there was entirely unfamiliar to them. Everyone was astonished, as these fruits were far beyond anything found in noble human estates, or even the demon realms. The gang leader was convinced that someone had been actively tending to the fields. Having sampled the fruit, one of her subordinates insisted that she give it a try as well. After tasting it, she realized the fruit was not only delicious, but also highly addictive. The group decided to explore the area more thoroughly to see what else they could find. They understood that being thoroughly prepared was essential for what lay ahead. They observed that the unusual architecture of the houses gave the village the distinct appearance of a farm. Furthermore, they took note of the mysterious cultivation. He came to the conclusion that the place was definitely inhabited. When a subordinate asked for instructions, the leader noted that the houses likely contained valuable treasures. Determined, the woman says she cannot let such an opportunity slip away, or else it would tarnish her reputation as a thief. They decide to invade the village and take everything valuable. However, something catches the leader's attention when she notices the presence of a bear nearby. In the village, Belina cast a spell toward the sky. She thinks that there is nothing unusual about the teleportation points. The young woman knows that maintaining such points is a job only she can do, but she can finish with just one enchantment. That is why she is helping everywhere, ensuring that her skill does not fade away. With the arrival of the three mermaids, the woman's workload has decreased, leaving her with much more free time. For her personal growth, this is very bad and she fears becoming unemployed. Belana decides to find something she can do. Desperate, she runs toward Lord Santo to ask for work. She asks what the man is doing and leaves him a little confused with her sudden approach. Happily, the boy says he's making pottery. Quickly, he begins explaining the process to the young woman, saying he's crafting kitchen utensils. However, production takes time and he needs something to spin the pottery, which excites Belina. She celebrates, saying she will be useful to her lord. Kid N does not understand what she means, and the girl says she will use psychokinesis to cast magic on the stones and make the objects move. Starting the process, she buries the stones at the base's edge, speaks a few words, and commands everything to move. The Lord finds this situation incredible and watches attentively. Suddenly, a piece of pottery flies into the boy's face and he screams. Then he orders Balana to slow down the spinning, and the girl apologizes. Embarrassed, the young man says his friend is always very hardworking. She justifies herself, saying she is not as skilled as Badami and the others, so she needs to dedicate herself more and work harder, adding that she does not want to be unemployed. Reassuring the girl, the boy says she's very helpful, and invites her to test ceramics together. Emotional, the young woman accepts, but her first piece does not turn out as expected. Irritated, she tries to destroy what she has made, but the man says no one is good at something the first time they try, and that gives sure they can use the failed piece for something else. The wolves start barking, and Kitten becomes curious about what is happening and decides to check it out. Upon arrival, he sees Orkubo holding a group of thieves. He asks the orc for an explanation of what is happening. Quickly, the orc explains that they caught a group of Elven bandits invading the farm. Kid N is confused and does not understand, but Belina explains that elves live deep in the forest and avoid interacting with humans. The young woman explains that she has heard of various groups of Elven bandits stealing everywhere. Apparently, they take a shelter in remote areas where no one dares to go, making them difficult to capture. Laughing, the young man says the group must be surprised to find a farm in the middle of nowhere. The leader asks what this place is and who the boy is, and he explains without hesitation. While the elves remain wary, they realize the young man is human, but the residents are monsters and his assistant is a demon. Trying to understand, Caden asks Orkubo if the elves did anything, and the man says they stole tomatoes from the farm. Princess Play appears, furious and shouting, asking if they stole and ate the tomatoes. Grinzel transforms into a dragon and declares that she will destroy every last one of the thieves. The boy's frightened, but the princess says a punishment is necessary to prevent future thefts. Vale agrees and says she will kill them and leave their bodies in the open. Desperate, the gang leader exclaims that this is the end of the stone-slicing tempest. And this makes Belina realize that the group only steals from the rich, that they target corrupt nobles whose misdeeds are exposed to their action, meaning they are gentlemen thieves. Grinzel says she does not care and insists they deserve the death penalty. Kidin says the princess is right and that a punishment is necessary. Therefore, he decides to issue a sentence in case of thefts. Affirming that is a serious crime, the young man has already made his decision, and he declares that the group will work for him for a period of time. Still restrained, the members of the group ask if they heard correctly what was proposed. The protagonist says yes. After all, they will be atoning for their sins, while Belina calls him knave. The girl scolds Keaton, saying that you should not underestimate the elves as they are bandits and criminals. But he responds that the farm already has a few other criminals. Vela continues threatening, saying she would have already burned her enemies. Catching the leader's attention, they ask about her comment that the place is full of criminals and realize that the human is tamed a dragon. They always think of a way to escape, while Belina suggests handing the group over to the demons. Curious, the boy asks what would happen if they did that, and they say it would depend on the demon's judgment. However, the current demon king is one who does not like to kill, so that Rube might not receive the death penalty. Understanding the situation, the boy questions whether this would be too much trouble for the king, given that he is at war with the human race. After some thought, he makes his verdict and declares that the group will work on the farm, and he places them under Vale's supervision, promising her a reward and return for the favor she is doing. Before starting, the boy asks if the group would like some tea. Later, everyone sits at the table and begins to serve themselves. Kaiden wants to learn more about his new subordinates and starts asking them questions. First, he asks the gang leader if she knows how to pull weeds and harvest crops, making the woman very nervous. She asks if the boy thinks forest dwellers cannot work in the fields, and Belina agrees with her. The girl explains that for elves, nature is something that exists, not something they can work on to improve their lives. Vale takes advantage of the questioning session to ask why they left the mountain to eat the farm's tomatoes. Quickly, the elf explains that their native forest was taken by humans and demons. Reflecting, Kitten thinks that the group is like the bears that left the forests because humans build houses there. He then says he feels sorry for the elf, who does not understand what just happened. The young man says that he also cut down many trees from the forest without knowing they were the elves' homes. Another member of the group says that the ongoing war is the real issue, as the forests have been gradually changing. The princess says it is not surprising that they turned to Bama tree, although it does not justify what they did. As the leader of the gang, the elves says they only stole from those they believe to be nobles, but the forests do not exclusively belong to the elves, and so she accepts that name for her sins, obediently addressing Kidit and calling him considerate. Happy, the boy simply thanks her. Belina, however, says they should send the group back to where they came from, insisting that they are not suited for the work. Lord Santo does not understand what is wrong with the girl, but someone calls him over, saying that the ceramic pot is not glazed. Laughing, the boy says he does not know how to do that, and the elf listens attentively. She decides to help and asks if the boy uses ashes from the furnace, saying that it would be possible to make glaze from that. The two continue talking about pottery. and is explained that this is basic knowledge for all elves, and it is concluded that they are more comfortable when it comes to making tools using nature's gifts. Platt asks if that is serious and questions whether she would like something made from nature. Belena suddenly starts crying desperately. Everyone is startled and asks what is wrong with her. The princess approaches, and the girl says that pottery was supposed to be her new job with the Lord, but she knew the elves were skilled at it. However, she also knew that if she said something, she would lose her job and her value would disappear. Trying to console her, Platt says that the girl already does a lot of work like washing and cleaning, but Belena says those are just chores. Caden says that everyone should help Belena with the chores from now on, and the girl thinks her workload will decrease. But that is not the case. The protagonist says that among the many tasks, you will learn new things and may find something to dedicate your heart and soul to. He apologizes for not noticing the girl's concerns earlier. Emotional, the servant kneels and thanks him. Platt asked what she could do. The elf approaches Belena and introduces herself as Aileron, and she offers to teach the girl pottery if she wants to learn, since she understands well the pain of losing the place she belonged to. Happy, the girl accepts the offer. Later, she's already in the workshop learning to shape some pieces with her new friend. The first pieces turn out badly, but she's encouraged to keep trying. With that, the farm welcomed a new group of friends. Meanwhile, in the Demon Royal Palace, a man limits how things have turned out, but he understands that he needs to ask for Lord Santa's help. Determined to go hunting, the group is accompanied by Lampai. One of the elves asks what their target is, and is told that they are after square boars, since his veil wanted to eat one. They say that besides food, the animals can also be used for leather goods like belts and bags, which would be helpful. The group spots a boar and fires their first arrow. With perfect accuracy, animal is struck down and falls to the ground dead. They remark that the elf's archery skills are no joke, and that with that tool you could strike opponents even from afar. Lampai asks if the elf could also make a magic arrow with an explosive potion at the tip, raising suspicions about what kind of opponent she wants to fight. The girl apologizes, saying it's just her taste as a former Imperial Guard. But the elf responds that with a dragon living among them, they won't need weapons. However, they mention that as long as the war between humans and demons doesn't end, true peace will never be achieved. After finishing the hunt, the group returns home, wondering how the Demon King is doing at that very moment. Lord Santo says that he lived with the group for a while and even helped build a house. Additionally, they held the wedding ceremony for the king and Lady Asters. But as he speaks, he notices a fight breaking out. Shocked, he realizes it's the Demon King fighting a girl named Glacia. The two clash swords and glare at each other. As they battle, the man tries to explain to Lord Santo what's happening, but his opponent interrupts, demanding that he fight seriously. The battle intensifies and both use their full strength. The hunting group notices that the king is in trouble, while Glacia asks why she was brought to that strange place. Ward Center thinks it would be best to put a temporary stop to the situation. While Astros apologizes for what happened, he calls for Orkobo's help, and the orb binds the Furace woman, leaving her immobilized. Outraged, she can't believe she was captured by a mere orc. While others ask if the king is all right, Platt and Belena approach the group, and the servant screams upon noticing Lady Asteris. The woman says she's happy to see the two girls doing well. On the girl comments, the Asterisks has become even more beautiful since the last time they met. Then they realize that Glacia is present and wonder why she's there. On his knees, the Demon King calls for Lord Santo and apologizes for the surprise visit. But he says they need to discuss something with the boy. First, he decides to introduce Glaz, then Malicious when the four celestial kings. Kitten is surprised by this information and asks if the young woman rebelled because of the marriage. He says no one explains that he managed to expel all the rebels who tried to take his place, with one exception. Confused, the boy doesn't understand when this is going and Belena wonders what's happening. The king continues saying that Glacia held the highest position among the rebels and declared that if she defeated him, she would become the next ruler. The revelation shocks everyone while Platt asks if that doesn't immediately take her off the list of those granted mercy. Trying to understand, the young woman asks if the boy will execute her now that he has suppressed her. But he says no because he considers her audacity commendable. After all, the others tried to remove him from his position through politics and cheap tricks, whereas she was different. Thoughtful, he says that at this point he might have to resort to executing the young woman. The witches and elves listening believe that he truly hates having to execute his people, and Platt says it's difficult for the group to interfere in internal matters. He degrades and asks for a handle of the explanation, the one who states that the truth is that Glacier is in love with Lord Zeden. Everyone is completely shocked by this information. A scene is shown where the girl yells that Astros was more important to Zeden than the title of king, and that because of this, she would succeed him. After that situation, when the king returned to the castle, things completely changed regarding the young woman. She screamed that she no longer cared and that she wanted to be queen as well. Otherwise, she wanted to be executed. The king says that he may have managed to eradicate disruptive elements and discord from the kingdom, but his problem with the grower remains. Lampai suggests that the king could take the girl as a concubine, but he says he cannot do that. After all, Astris is his only wife, and that is what he promised Hayes. Therefore, if he takes Glacia as his concubine, divine punishment may fall upon her, and the young woman asks him to execute her. But Zeden says he made a hasty decision and didn't realize how much the girl desired him, but she calls him a coward. Interviewing in the situation, Kitten asks if the girl truly considers becoming a concubine, and warns that if so, there could be a problem. Astra states that she is the king's wife, and understands that it is inevitable for him to have a concubine, adding that the kingdom cannot afford to lose a girl with first-class military power. Upon hearing this, the two women glare at each other and exchange insults. The king apologizes to the lord for the trouble he is causing, but then the undead king appears, calling for sensei. Plato asks what that means, and why the undead king is there. Devil also appears, and he came to see what all the commotion was about, while Puffer and Gara question what is happening. As they approach, they notice the king seem occupied with something and decide to take a look. Glacia lets out a fierce scream, startling everyone. Her power begins to emanate, and everyone is shocked by the sheer amount she possesses. She steps in front of the Demon King and urges him to move to a safe location. Astras, the Lord, and even the undead Kame are left confused by her actions. The young woman shouts, telling Astris to flee with her husband to a secure place as well. But the Demon King places a hand on the girl's shoulder, leaving her puzzled. The man tells her that his kingdom still depends on someone like her, while she asks how you remain so composed in a moment like this. Belina reassures the lady not to worry and explains that the undead king is from the neighbor. Even so, Glacier does not fully trust that explanation. With doubts, the skull-faced man asks if the young woman minds him asking a few questions. He states that due to the power of the vows made before God, Zeden does not accept a concubine, and for that, he apologizes for having casually summoned Hades. The man continues, explaining that he is the god of the underworld, has the Earth Mother Goddess as his only wife, and does not approve of adultery. Kidding is surprised to hear that gods have wives while the conversation between the kings continues. They explain that each god has their own way of asserting control over their domain. But for Hayes, relationships are important. Therefore, if he requires that those who receive his blessings love only a single wife, and Lord Santo acknowledges this. In the Demon King's case, he fights against the human race, and thus he must unite small groups and lead them. Because of this, at times he has had to marry multiple women who had connections to secure alliances. Zeden says he was aware of his responsibilities, but let his feelings for Astros get the better of him in a careless decision. Not to mention that he was oblivious to Glaze's deep admiration for him, emotional. The girl says she is not worthy of such words, and will not regret having her head cut off because of this. Concerned Kid, and asks what can be done about this, and the undead king states that there is only one thing to do. A god appears before them, holding an imposing staff. Everyone is shocked, questioning whether he really summoned a god. It is Hayes who declares that he sees everything, and that the more he listens, the more blasphemy he hears, accusing the Demon King of violating his own terms. Kitten notices that the god is angry, while Glacia asks that the punishment fall upon her, asserting that the situation arose because of her actions. But the girl is interrupted as they argue that in the fight against the human race, she is an asset to the demons. Therefore, concubinage is a matter of life or death for the demon race. Hayes begins to stammer as he thinks about how to respond while they continue advocating for Glacia. Another goddess appears and asks if it wasn't as rigid blessing that worsened the situation. Once again, the group is left confused, and Platy says that she is Hades' wife. The woman states that she is grateful to her husband, but that his serenity and inflexibility are flaws of his. She asks if he isn't trying to exert control over his use in Poseidon, and the god gets irritated, saying not to compare him to them. The Earth Mother Goddess approaches Zeden and says she understands the man's thoughts. With that, she must apologize and cannot ignore the young man's wishes. Additionally, she does not want to set an example of disregarding value for the rest of the group. She emphasizes that a god's blessing is a promise, and if it can be easily broken, any contract's value becomes meaningless. The goddess continues, saying that to break such a contract while preserving its value, a special and equal measure is required. The group does not understand what she means by that statement. She concludes that she also has another suggestion, but is interrupted when asked if Persephone has a problem. Determined, she points at the protagonist and calls him a child. Then she asks if the young man is one of Zeus's children, but realizes that he is someone from beyond the realm, asking if he receives something special from Hephaestus, thinking it refers to the gift of the Hand of Supremacy. The boy agrees that he received something. Persephone says that is intriguing, and that, if things go well, she may grant an exception. Zeden reflects on this gift he received from Hephaestus. The group of elves questions if she will allow the demon king to have multiple wives. Persephone then says that her husband holds the right over the 7 celestial swords. Zeden kneels and closes his eyes. Standing up, he takes one of the swords with him and hands it to the goddess. With this, Lord Santa realizes that the demon king's weapon was made by a god, and is informed that his own was as well. He looks at his weapon and remembers that it is also a secret object. Persephone notices that the group already possesses the other 2 swords, and Zevon explains how he found their location. Glacia and Astra appear with other swords, but they are broken. The goddess says the group is carrying broken objects, while the girl asserts that it is proof of their loyalty to the demon king. Confused, Plato and Zeden ask for an explanation of what is happening, and the king explains that it is something from hundreds of years ago. He explains that they had 5 of the 7 swords forged by the god of the underworld, and that each of the objects belonged to one of the 5 demon families. Then a war broke out among the families for the royal throne. The last one standing was Eden's ancestor, who gathered all the swords from the defeated families and destroyed them. Lord Seta ponders what he just heard, trying to make sense of it. Persephone explains that there is a reason for this, and that it involves the young man internally. A long time ago, when the gods decided to rule the world, Poseidon and Hades chose to spread their descendants across the land. But Zeus grew jealous and sent his descendants to the land to claim it as his own. The undead king says that these descendants came to be called humans, and that they are invaders sent from the heavens. Hayes says he helped craft swords for the war against the humans and delivered them to the world. Curious, Ward Santo asks why there were 7 swords, and they reply that this way the true celestial sword could not be forged. Understanding, he states that he will not relinquish his sword, and they explain that the object becomes stronger with battle experience. Additionally, the true celestial sword is the ultimate power for the destruction of humankind. Hearing the story, Plato realizes that the strongest sword has not yet been forged. Therefore, it should be destroyed by the demon king as well. But Zeden says he cannot do that. Once again, Lord Santo asks if the celestial sword can be forged, and they confirm that it can. Shouting, Platt asked why Hayes made something so difficult, and the man responds that even with his power, the god of crafts, Hephaestus, is unbeatable. Upon hearing Hephaestus' name, the group becomes confused. The princess asks if he is not the one who gave the gift to the boy, and he agrees. Then, Persephone says she has something to ask of the boy. She asks if, with his power, he would be able to repair the broken sacred swords. The young man is left speechless and does not know how to respond. The goddess continues, saying that with the young man's power, it will be possible to repair the swords and elevate their level to celestial. Since out of the 7, 6 will be destroyed to complete the task, but there are 2 true ones, which are more than enough to defeat humanity. She also states that if her husband manages to remove Zeus's influence from the land, would be a great achievement. Glacia says that is incredible, while Astor acknowledges that the Cento truly has great power. The elf asks if this can really stop the war between humans and demons and make their lives much easier. Persephone adds that those who return the land to her husband's rule will be rewarded. The god declares that if the demon king accomplishes this, he will allow a special condition in the man's contract with him. Devil shouts that this was expected from her sweetheart, while Hayes asks if the visitor truly intends to do this. Afraid, he looks at his hands and wonders if he will really forge a sword to destroy humanity. Realizing the boy's hesitation, Hades says he must tell him something important, that even if his reign is the greatest, Hephaestus was exiled due to his inferior appearance. It would be poetic to use his gift to destroy his own father. Zeden becomes even more distressed and says that Hephaestus is not that kind of god, shocking Plato. The god says that the boy is siding with the humans. He responds that it's not like that, but he believes Hephaestus did not give the gift to be used in such a way, and that such a gift does not have to be used for this kind of thing. Everyone looks at each other, confused by the boy's statement, but he concludes that if he can resolve things by forging swords of blood, then he will repair them. The Lord thinks that he may be able to forge the mystical weapon capable of destroying the human race. With this, the king can have a concubine and the war between demons and humans. Thinking about everything, he is watched by Zeden. The man places his hand on the boy's shoulder, startling him. He asked his friend not to worry, as he will not allow a secret tool to be used to destroy human race. The statement makes Hayes furious, although witches realize the boy has a plan. The Demon King explains that perhaps, with a true sword, he could break the sacred barrier that surrounds a human castle created by Zeus. The group believes that decision will be great since because of that barrier, the demons were repelled and could now catch them by surprise. Kneeling on the ground, Zeden swears in the name of the god of the underworld that he will dismantle the human political system. Everyone is delighted to see the man make that decision. Hayes says that it is the royal family and the church that maintains Zeus as a superior entity, and that if the king manages to overthrow both, he can dismantle humanity as a nation. Fawful the god says that he believes there are those who think that the children of Zeus will always have a plan. And that is excellent. Persephone says that if they could at least eliminate the kings of the human race, not even Zeus could interfere. She hands something to Glacia. The girl wonders what it is. And the goddess explains that it is the blessing of Mother Earth, and that with it, she can marry. The demon king does not fully understand, but thanks her for the kindness. The woman says that the sacred sword should only strike once, in that with 2 strikes flowers will bloom. Hayes agrees and offers Kit in a small token of gratitude for his help. The boy says he does not expect compensation, and that it is a blessing that the harvest on the land will improve. Both gods disappear into the sky. Looking in his hand, the protagonist wonders if things are settled for now. Gathering the Groot, the boy states that he will gather his strength and prepare for the demon lord's departure. Hours later, he celebrates that he has managed to restore the 2 sacred swords. Everyone rejoices and says it is wonderful. He asks Devon how the strategy meeting went, and the man says he has some information from the elves, and that you will enter the castle through the mountain. With this, he is sure he can minimize the number of human casualties. Aster says she is very lucky to have met the Holy Lord, and that she will provide a report once the battle is won. Belena and the other servant call for Glacia and the king's wife. They ask the 2 to take anti-magic fabric with them, as it will protect them from enemy attacks. But Glacia becomes furious and says she does not need anyone's protection, as she will be the one to protect everyone. Plitty arrives and says that the food is ready. Tankatsu, a dish topped by the Holy One, is served. Glacia is confused, but decides to try to see how it tastes. She is enchanted, and they explain that the white food is rice, which pairs perfectly with takuan. As everyone eats, the princess tells her husband that she hopes the Demon King's war has been successful. A few days pass and a castle is shown. A man asks if his servant still has not found Holy Kitten and what his search teams are doing. The young man calls them all incompetent, while another enters the room bringing bad news. He states that he has urgent information from Broder, and that the Demon King is leading a large army to invade the country. Desperate, the king does not know what to do. The other men in the kingdom are worried, wondering why this is happening since they provoke no one. The king orders the armies to be dispatched, but there are no generals available, as they have gone to search for Holy Kitten. With that, the man orders more armies to be hired and declares that the Demon King will never defeat his trump card, which is the sacred barrier. Nearby, Glacia and Astra's talk, believing they have done a good job, while Zeden distracts the humans. The 2 set out again on their mission, heading towards the castle. A great light engulfs the surroundings. The 2 manage to break the sacred barrier that protects the location. Once again, the servants rush to notify the Majesty that something terrible has happened, and that the sacred barrier has been broken. Nervous, the man orders everyone to notify the church to implement new protection, but they say it is impossible. Everyone tries to find a solution to the situation, but they do not know how to reinstate the protective barrier. Then Zeden appears in the hall and declares that he will end the conflict. He orders the king of humans to go with him. With that, the kingdom of humans was dismantled, and the Demon King promised the safety of all, except for the royal family and church officials. Momoko is deep in thought, and they ask her what is wrong. The girl wonders where Holy Kid is. The protagonist explains that the Demon King is leading the world to peace, but humans are indestructible and their armies are invincible. A girl enters the room calling for Holy Salma. It is Gera, and she says they have finally finished what was requested a long time ago. The beer is ready. Vale appears, asking if she was called, and the young man apologizes, saying is all quite confusing. Grinsel says the beer is similar to sake and asks the Lord to taste it first, mentioning that the bottle was made by the elves. Looking at the liquid, the man remarks on its beautiful amber color and the corals as to be served as well. Both kid in and the drag and take a sip of the drink. They are delighted as they taste the liquid. The Lord thanks God and says it will be a great success. Overcome with emotion, the girl starts crying and the young man does not understand why. She says that she was never able to conduct so much research while imprisoned, and that the man is her savior. However, now that the beer is made, the girl asks what will happen to her, and if she will be dismissed. Play appears calling the witch a thief, and she yells, asking what she's doing with her husband. They'll ask the princess to look closely, as the girl is simply sleeping in the young man's arms. They say she is drunk for researching the beer, while the Lord states that he will serve the drink during the Demon King's next visit. Everyone drinks the liquid and rejoices. Now awake, Roof of notice is that everyone is having fun, while Vale says she prefers the drink without foam. Happy, the group toasts and seems to be quite drunk. Drunk from alcohol, the Lord declares that Plato is kind and strong, confessing his love for his wife. She's happy with her husband's words. They say beer is good if consumed occasionally. Elsewhere, a house is shown. Holy Lord approaches Hephaestus and asks how he is doing. Grateful. He says that thanks to the gift he received, he can live well in this world. He asked him to continue looking after the group. The protagonist explains that he has been in the place for some time, that he was summoned by the king of the human kingdom, and met Pleiadian extraordinary beings. With that, you build a house, cultivated fields, made new friends, and became a member of this group. Thanks to the mermaids, spices and luxury items were produced, and with the help of the elves, craftsmanship improved. With so much progress, Kitten is sure that the Demon King will be surprised when he returns. He wonders if the strategy was really good. The young man remembers when the day began, and any coal the wolves to feed them, and Devil approached asking the master for something. The young woman said that her dungeon was behaving strangely and asked if the lord had any idea why. Kitten is a little startled by what he hears. Then he concludes that the environment in the young woman's dungeon is different depending on the stage, and that they could cultivate various crops efficiently. Quickly, he decides to name the plan to convert Vale's Mountain into a dungeon orchard. The master is happy to see the place full, while the girl asks if they are edible. Full of questions, she asks if they taste good, and the boy confirms that they do. Kitten explains that once the fruits are available, the menu will expand and everyone will be able to eat together. Once the harvest was tallied, they discovered they had exactly enough to provide an equal share for everyone. Vale, however, is reprimanded for her premature and foolish behavior. He expressed concern, explaining that not knowing the precise fruit yield would lead to complications for him later on. Admitting her lack of self-control, the girl refuses to make a promise, insisting that her intellect sets her apart from the dogs in the vicinity. A short while later, Vale was found in agony after helping himself to an unripe persimmon, only to learn that the fruit is far too bitter to consume without being properly prepared. Kitten explains that certain ingredients require proper preparation before they are ready to be consumed. While preparing the meal, he realizes that the veil will allow him to create a much wider variety of dishes. He was eager to share them with everyone at the earliest opportunity. Unexpectedly, the Demon King made his entrance and offered an apology for the disruption. In a state of pure euphoria, the boy eagerly checked in to see how the man was faring. Realizing something was amiss, he began to question how things had played out in the human kingdom. He soon realized that the man wasn't alone, noticing a girl accompanying him. The young woman inquired if the boy was the farm's owner, and introduced herself as Princess Gledislet. She boldly declared that he should consider it a privilege to look after her. Taken by surprise, he watched as the girl ordered the group to assemble. She turned to the Demon King, seeking an explanation for the current situation. The boy questioned in disbelief whether their plan had actually fallen through. He denied it, explaining that the country had fallen into ruin due to political turmoil following the king's death. He ultimately concluded that thanks to the boy's help, the situation was no longer a concern. Noria was just about to inquire whether the girl held any particular significance. She cut him off before he could finish his sentence. The girl with the unique hair demands to know what the protagonist is whispering, labeling his behavior as insolent. She informed them that they, too, had been designated as one of her farmers. With a dramatic gesture, she commanded everyone to bow before her royal presence. Citing her status as Reticelet royalty, she offers to overlook their disrespect, adding that their descendants should take pride in her mercy. With an air of arrogance, she proclaims herself the top princess of the human kingdom, quickly correcting her title to the most noble among them. Laughing with pride, she declared that no other being compared to her, demanding they admire and submit to her presence. She was met with a sharp slap and a demand for silence, as her captors angrily noted how composed she remained for a princess of a fallen kingdom. Overwhelmed by pain, the princess tearfully offered her apologies. Shouting rudely, she continues to deliver harsh truths about the state of things since the kingdom's destruction. She has been stripped of her former status and is now living as a simple commoner. She then inquired whether the Demon King intended to let the child remain there. He remained unfazed by how quickly Princess Pleiadi deduced the truth, especially since the girl had no place left to call home. He explained that although the king had fallen, the kingdom remained unconquered, and its new inhabitants made the task ahead truly monumental. Furthermore, the kingdom's former regime persists, as the lingering remnants of the dying dynasty refuse to fade away. Consequently, knowing the princess's location is incredibly dangerous, as any kidnapper who marries her could claim the title of king. The woman bluntly concluded that the princess should simply pass away. Through her tears and desperation, she admits she has no actual authority as a princess and begs them to end her life. The protagonist asks her to be a bit more compassionate, but she completely ignores his request. The Demon King clarifies the situation, explaining that she is actually impossible to kill. He was acting on a promise he had previously made to the king of the human nation. After understanding his motives, the group welcomed the princess to the farm, though they warned her that she would be expected to earn her keep through hard work. With that, the task of teaching the pampered girl how to labor in the fields officially began. The girl endured constant reprimands until she finally managed to master her basic responsibilities. After finishing their tasks, the protagonist sat down to rest alongside the girl. She savored the simple piece of bread as if it were the most incredible meal she had ever tasted. The boy is caught off guard when she admits that she has no intention of escaping. Beyond that, she harbors the hope of reclaiming everything she lost to the kingdom, fully intending to live a long and peaceful life. Unexpectedly, she voiced her conviction that the saint would eventually arrive to rescue them. A woman soon arrived to assist the young girl with her clothing. She continued her diligent work until the strain in her back eventually forced her to take a brief rest. As she offered her prayers, she witnessed the Heavenly Father manifesting in the sky above. As she examined the vision appearing in the sky, she realized the Demon King's true intention was to reach out to Hades directly. The protagonist wonders if it is okay to call upon God so often, and the skeleton responds that this time he wanted to be called. God then says that the undead king did well to summon him in response to the oracle, and says that it seems the Demon King has finally destroyed Zeus and all his kin. They're surprised that God knew. The man ends up confessing that he wants to rule the lane of humans without spilling the necessary strawberry juice. God orders him to defeat the problems of Zeus tribes and overcome the first demon, king, who has total control over the land. And he continues by saying that from this day forward, he will allow him to be known as the greatest demon, Cain of all time. Surprised, he accepts God's request. As a token of gratitude, a protagonist prepares a delicious dish for God, and he likes it so much that he declares it divine, food that must be revered. Other gods appear and are astonished by the land. They decide to prepare a feast for the gods, and once it is ready, is celebrated by drinking and eating. A child arrives and the superiors recognize her. She commands to know the state of the human race and asks about Zeus, the most important of all. They laugh and say that he is selfish and arrogant, and that even his peers cannot summon him. The girl is shocked by the truth, and runs away crying. They decide to leave her alone for now. The gods regret revealing their secrets to the princess. They say she will face many problems in the future because the child is too arrogant. The boy adds that at least she is doing her best by working, but her motivation is the hope of finding Kid in the sink. Besides that, none of them can afford to anger Zeus. They feel encouraged by being protected by the gods. The girl then questions whether Zeus is also unaware of things like the other gods. She is ignored and they move on to continue serving the gods, receiving rewards in return. Their land is blessed with a year of good harvest, abundant hunting, and the well-being of all. And thus the gods depart. They chat about the events of the last few hours. While in the distance, the girl screams that Zeus is an idiot, wishing him nothing but misfortune. The protagonist arrives with a kind gesture, asking the little girl if she would like to have her own field and showing her a place for it. He tells her that everything she plans there will be hers, and she excitedly accepts. Another day the two were talking and noticed that the work is progressing too quickly, which seems strange. Then he recounts that one day he was about to weed a field, but before they even started, one side was already cleared, and in addition there were new plants. They asked everyone if someone had done it, but no one had. The girl had not seen anyone there either as she was not working in that area at the time. Thus a mystery arises as to who had cut the weeds, so they go to the place to observe what might be happening. Suddenly several beings emerge from the ground, startling them. Upon closer inspection, they see that they are cute little fairies who call themselves earth spirits. Then they remember that the gods have blessed the land of this place. The spirits want to thank them for allowing them to materialize and thus help them. After much discussion about what to do with these blessings, they decide that the spirits will work on domestic chores. Thus everyone celebrates their help. Meanwhile, Hermes tries to get Zeus's attention but realizes that he does not care. When the thunder god finally notices his presence, Hermes says he has something very important to report. Yawning and without much interest, Zeus says he is busy and asks what the news is, warning that if it is boring, there will be punishment. Fed up, Hermes blurts out that it is nothing major, just that the human kingdom has been defeated. Without even registering what Hermes said, Hermes has been defeated. Zeus comments that his punishment will be to imitate a constipated chicken, but before carrying out the punishment, he suddenly stops, realizes what Hermes has just said, and is in shock. Then Hermes casually comments that the land is part of Hesoviazin's territory, and as Zeus always says, the winner takes all. He also adds that the demons who won did not exterminate humans, they simply annexed them, which was actually a kind gesture. Completely distressed, Zeus says that there was no way to know that. He says, frustrated that even though they lost, they should have fought to the very end, without knowing what to do. Hermes offers to help, asking a thingy to send reinforcements. Zeus, utterly confused, replies that he sees no reason for that, making Hermes think that this god is a complete idiot. Finding it all very strange, Zeus wonders if Hades did not deceive them into helping the demons. Hermes mutters under his breath that Hades is not like him, and Zeus, after thinking for a moment, concludes that no, Hades must have cheated. Frustrated, Hermes pleads was used to listen, warning that if he starts a war, all the gods will turn against him. Hermes continues by saying that the thunder god is not very popular, and no one will risk their lives for him. Zeus responds that he will throw a tantrum for all those who still care. Hermes wonders why the humans lost to the demons. But deep down, he knows that the reason for all of this was the visit of someone from another world. He talks about Santo, a man who inherited his brother's gift, and how this power ended up influencing the war. But Hermes remembers that if his idiot father finds out about this, everything will end very badly. It hopes the war will end, and for that, Santo's existence must be kept secret. Worry. He wonders if Santa's peace will be maintained since he knows his father well. His father remains arrogant, acting as if he owns the world, as if nothing's above him. Zeus, still deep in thought, wonders if he cannot govern the earth. Then maybe he doesn't have the power to destroy it either. Thinking everyone is an idiot, Zeus says he still has one last card to play, destroying everything. Retus Lashan, irritated, says that Santo is too slow. She insists that he teaches her how to plant Suriname, and Santo corrects her, saying they are Suriname seedlings. She's fascinated, and Santo tells her that their growth will depend on her effort. Determined, she says she will do her best because the children's lives depend on her. Stato asks her to imagine that the taste of that Suriname will be special, and that they will give their all so they can eat it together. She thanks him, still a little embarrassed, and Santo looks slightly confused. Trying Teacher E continues, now showing how to open paths in the plantation. Santor explains that she must use a hoe to dig the trench and demonstrates how to do it. Suddenly an earthquake begins and Santo protects Redislet Chan, asking her to close her eyes. When the earthquake stops, they realize, shocked, that a hole has suddenly appeared in the ground, right in the middle of the plantation. Regislet Chan wonders if it's the spirits again, but Santo says he doesn't understand what it is. He wonders if it could be a Moltec monster, since there is a hole right in the middle. Concluding that it probably is, judging by the size of the hole, he asks Rethis let this step back. He reassures the scared Retislet, telling her not to worry because he will protect her no matter what. Using the hoe he was holding, he carefully pokes at the hole. Regislet, still frightened, asks what's down there. At that moment, a woman very, very beautiful emerges from the hole and Santo is clearly startled. Riteshlet suspicious confirms that this is definitely not a mole. At the table, everyone praises the food. Santor says he does not have a favorite dish, unlike his fiancée. Santor starts getting anxious, thinking it's absurd not to have a favorite dish. Everyone insists that Santamachu's a favorite dish, but he responds that he simply can't. He says he can't choose because he wasn't the one who prepared the food. So I'm asked if you can't decide, do you go lack of ingredients? But Platy tells him not to worry as the team can prepare anything. Center feels relieved, realizing that won't be a problem, and one of the elves volunteers to help on behalf of everyone. The elf Gera Rufo offers to assist, explaining that she will need a container to ferment soybeans since they will make a cake. Steven. They discover that her actual plan is to make beer. Everyone joins forces to make the Master Sento's favorite dish and won't stop praising the results. They all get ready to taste Sando's favorite food, filled with anticipation. Wellman's time to arrive with the dish. They make disgusted faces and start saying it smells terrible, almost like it's rotten. Santor doesn't mind, but as he gets closer, the others start running away, fleeing from the food. He starts crying, defending the dish as if it were the key to immortality. A man appears, approaches Santo, and says that out of duty, he must taste the food, even if it's poisoned. But two begin tasting the dish and everyone watches tensely, waiting for their reactions. Surprisingly, they both love the food. One says it cured his back pain while the other claims his bruise disappeared. Shortly after, Gera Rufa calls for Santo. She also tried the fume and loved it, saying she now feels much healthier. Everyone gathers to praise the food which they now call Bacteria Santo. Surprise doesn't know what to say. Platy with a nervous smile says that despite all the praise, she still won't be able to eat that dish. Santo and Ritus let exchange glances trying to figure out if this is a giant mole or maybe even a dragon. The warning begins to say some strange phrases of identification and rebooting. Rachel Slett can't believe she actually said that. The woman says something about synchronizing with the outside world and how years have passed since her dormancy. Santo, impatient, comments that she talks too much. The one who mentions something about function loss, and her wings simply stopped flapping, causing her fall to the ground. Santa moves closer, looks at her, and begins to wonder if she is still alive since she doesn't even seem to be breathing. Right at that moment, Orkubo-san appears calling for Santo, but he replies that it's a terrible time. Back at home, Gera Rufa carefully examines the woman but admits that she has no idea what she is. They start wondering if she is human, a mermaid, or even a demon. Garufa agrees, and it's a good starting point for investigation. Gara Rufa comments that she will need nutrients to help her body regain strength. One of them remembers Santo's favorite food, which has healing properties, and they decide that even though it tastes awful, she'll have to eat it. When the food is given to her, everyone hopes she gets better. Suddenly, the woman sits up and stands, startling everyone. The woman starts talking about self-restoration and says that memory recovery has failed. At that moment, she crouches and moves closer to Santo, recognizing him as the one who saved her. She says she is a lamina created by the will of the heavens and that Santo is now her master. Santo doesn't understand how she can be an angel, and she asks him to give her his first order. Lenina says she can annihilate all enemies for him, but Santo asks her to stop talking like that. Santo asks Sturdy to just answer his questions. He asks what race she comes from, but since she has lost her memory, Lenina doesn't know the answer. Pletty says that if she has no memory, then there's nothing they can do, and decides to call the sensei. Santa comments to the sensei that she seems to be an angel, but the sensei responds that in his entire existence, he has never heard of angels. As sensei says, there is still one way to find out what this woman truly is, and decides to call upon the gods. Zeus appears with a curious smile, asking if there's anything good to eat. Santo, not wasting time, says he has only one question. Impatient, Zeus warns that if the question is boring, there will be punishment. When asked if the woman is an angel, the god freaks out, exclaiming how that could be since they annihilated all of them. He says that Santa did well to call him because that woman is a vanguard, a destroyer of Earth. He explains that these angels were his masterpieces, initially 10 angels. But with all that power, they invaded Earth, evaporated the sea, and destroyed all living things. Santa doesn't understand. How could someone want to destroy what they are trying to conquer? Zeus continues saying that the only solution was to use the first dragon to destroy them all. Zeus and Poseidon ascended to the heavens with Zeus refusing to give up on Earth and determined to reign over it. That could have been the interval between the defeat of the human race and the rise of the demon race. Play asks what will happen to that woman now. Shu says she cannot remain unrestricted, but the woman replies that her mission is to protect the seventh angel. Everyone is confused, wondering if this means the seventh angel's existence might be erased. Santa was still trying to find a solution, asks if there is no other way to destroy her. He says she seems like a good person, but Zeus, with a serious tone, warns that she has no emotions, which makes you even more dangerous. Lenina calls Santo and admits that she really is dangerous, a threat to the world. She says that self-destruction would be a good option to avoid chaos. She looks at Santo and with a serious tone says that if it is his will, she can self-destruct. At that moment, Rikuslet runs to Lamina and says that deep down, she can become a good person and change her way of life. Santo, wanting to console Rikuslet and better understand the situation, asks Zeus if he can entrust the angel to him. Before his use can refuse, Santo offers him a new kitchen. In a split second, Zeus had a complete change of heart. Zeus finally relented, asking Santo to show Lenina the true beauty the world had to offer. Santo stepped up and accepted the responsibility entrusted to him. When Zeus's phone begins to ring, he answers it without a moment's delay. Santo spoke in a flat, monotonous tone, clearly waiting for Zeus to wrap up the conversation. Zia bid them farewell, noting that he was eagerly looking forward to the new kitchen. Lenina turned toward her master, inquiring about what their next course of action would be. Smiling, Santa explained that she would be living there with the others from now on. With her eyes gleaming in excitement, Regislet declared that Lamina was now like a younger sister to her, and that they would be working together from that point on. Lenina questioned Santa about the nature of the elixir that had restored her from a pile of scrap to a functional state. Santa replied, clarifying that the situation wasn't over yet. If Alenina fails to continue consuming those irregular materials, she will eventually revert to being a mere pile of scrap. Lenina, overcome with excitement, began explaining the incredible properties of the elixir. It was claimed to wash away all impurities, even leaving the skin with a healthy radiance. Declaring Nado to be the most potent elixir in existence, she asked Santo to entrust her with its protection. Lenina requested that Santo teach her the process of making Nan. He pondered how a being forged for destruction could now harbor a desire to protect and preserve. Richards had Selenina observe and analyze the field first before they decided to move forward. Scanning the surrounding terrain, Lenina announces that she has successfully located an underground water vein. Recognizing that this would make the job much easier, Lenina immediately volunteered to start working on it. The entire crowd was left thoroughly impressed. She went beyond simply bringing the water within reach. She also manifested a hot spring, catching everyone completely off guard. Clearly irritated, the Veil demanded to know the woman's identity. As she transformed into a massive dragon, Lenina didn't hesitate to ask if she could eliminate the creature. Wearing a serious expression, Santo requests the installation of a pipe leading directly to the mansion. Veil initially declines, but she quickly reconsiders after being promised a dessert. Following Sento's request to prepare the pipes, Veil and Orkubo's team took charge of the setup. Meanwhile, the Goblin crew took charge of managing the baths. Through their collective efforts, the bath was soon prepared for use. Santa continued his celebration as he moved along. To him, the simple convenience of having hot water at home felt like a dream finally realized. He asked for a show of hands from those willing to lead the first debate, claiming the experience would cleanse their lives. The pair engaged in a competitive round of rock, paper, scissors to settle who would be the first to enter the water. Rhaetus insisted on going first, arguing that she deserved priority since she had provided the land for the entire operation. Bale voiced his frustration as their group continued to grow in size. William makes no effort to hide her dislike for Lenina, admitting that she senses something genuinely dangerous about her. Santo questioned whether Vale's entire lineage had truly been wiped out by an angel. Vale turned toward Lamina and issued a direct challenge to a fight. Lenina declines the challenge, stating that although she was engineered for destruction, she refuses to follow that path. Having been reborn, she now moves forward with a new sense of purpose. Lenina formally declares her new role as an angel, committing herself entirely to NATO's protection. She muttered a warning to everyone present, insisting that Lenina be kept far away from her. Rich noted that Santa's wife still hadn't emerged from the bath, prompting him to head over and check on her out of concern. He decided to check in, wanting to verify that everything was still in order. Upon their arrival, they found Platt in the bathtub, looking completely at ease as she bathed. As embarrassment washed over the group, Santo was quick to shield his eyes. Santo reported that the rear area had descended into absolute chaos. Santo stood there bewildered, unable to comprehend how the situation had escalated into such a problem. Santo reached out to Vale and Holst, proposing that they work together. The path ahead was direct, yet it remained shrouded behind a mysterious veil. Despite their obvious reluctance, they eventually gave their consent. Naturally, Vale requests more food in exchange, and soon everyone joins in to help. Gladdy comments that the back should be enjoyed slowly. That rushing. Santo organizes the tasks. Stevens McClose blacksmith handle baskets. Goblins manage the fields and spirits clean the house. The ELF team takes care of the pipes, while Santo and the orcs begin building the giant bathhouse. Everyone in the village is working on constructing the super public bath. It will be a very important place, so it needs to be built in a distant and sturdy location. The warrior notes that there is a lot of water underground in the region where they are. The master sees that the location has an ocean view, and is perfect. The whole thing is starting to look more like a grand spa. Vale begins to remember that the area below them is close to the dungeon of the previous corpse. This covers a huge useless space, but they can't let anything happen to the sensei's dungeon. Suddenly the skeleton appears beside them, saying he is certain of something. Dungeons are distortions caused by stagnant connective mana, so the cave isn't exactly underground. So even if they dig deep, they won't find the place. And apparently that wasn't what Vale was trying to say. She wants to know it's okay to build in a place that might be the sensei's territory. And he himself confirms that it's fine. The protagonist tells the guy he's free to visit them anytime he wants once everything is finished. Now that this issue is resolved, I need to finish things up. The girl transforms into a dragon, and now has to retrieve the installation they built at home and bring it there. Then the boy himself decides that he will fix everything while she is away. He listed powerful axe, and drives it into the ground of all his strength. Afterward, the earth cracks brutally under the protagonist's force. Now they have a good plot to begin construction. The OR team will start by preparing the foundation and the pipes. The elves will do this plastering when Vale returns. And finally, the goblins need to perform their best work. After some time, the grand bathhouse is completed, standing right in front of the boy. Since I asked what kind of bizarre structure this is, and the protagonist prepares for the final step. He calls for Horkeston and she confirms the designated area. Then the woman begins to fly. It looks like she is about to start drilling, and Master gets nervous, fearing his friend might fire something off. The elf raises her hand and concentrates her magic. Using her strength, she also chants some magical words. She wants 2 blades that slay dragons and gods to become one. All of this will be used to drill into the ground. It's a drill that the girl is going to use, but the words she spoke before are much more concerning than that. Suddenly, the place where she drilled begins to shrink a little by little. Then out of nowhere, it explodes with a water spring. The bath is finally finished and the waters are in use. The boys are using one of the tubs and Sensei praises the facility. Even he feels the hot water revitalizing his body. The others also seem satisfied. From a wall, they can hear the girls using the bath too, and the dragon girl is very excited about it. Another girl says she will teach how bath etiquette works since his tour's first time, but the driving girl already jumps straight into the pool, splashing water on the others. The girl didn't even wash herself first, which irritates her friends. They are having fun swimming in the water, and the protagonist wonders if that's really okay. One of the girls couldn't resist and reverted to her mermaid form, but now she looks like a boiled fish in the water. Good thing they have humanization potions there. In reality, many of them should be doing this as they are supposed to be serving a penal sentence. The others remember this clearly. Even so, it's very difficult to return to their original forms, and they likely don't want to go back to their old ways of life. In fact, from now on, they want to continue fulfilling their duties. So they thank Princess Platy for her kindness, and she starts thinking about the elves now. She wonders if life there harms elven pride. The elves feel that it is great to be there, even though their elven pride is now being upheld by someone else, like when the Lord Saint wanted to preserve the forest and use his own cypress for construction. He ended up teaching the creatures how to survive through cooperation, coexisting with other species. The princess says that she too needs to learn more from this place, especially from her sister Holly. Apparently the princess is being very sincere. Bats certainly have this mysterious power. Who would have thought the girls would enjoy a bath together so much? The protagonist hears shouting, warning the young dragon girl to stop swimming there. It feels very happy that they built this bathhouse. It's time to leave, but something surprises the young man. There is another man in the pool. Sensei asks if something is wrong. An elf hands him a bucket of water to see himself. The bath has rejuvenated the old man, and he remembers that this is how he looked in his youth. Now the protagonist, Faran, has a bathhouse and he feels relaxed about it. One of his grills notices that the yukatas are really nice. That was a work by the goblin team together with the demon team. The elves and the orcs built a path leading to the house. Now everything is perfect on the farm. The boy reveals that actually something was missing when they finished building. The only thing missing is milk. He really wanted to enjoy a bottle of milk after his bath, and it could be a great addition to his culinary repertoire. This would open doors for pastry making, cheese, and butter. The protagonist asks his girls if they know where to get milk, and they realize they need to get their hands on some source. In this world, there are some organisms that produce milk, but it has to be the best, so they ask the dragon girl to provide this ingredient. That's because dragon milk is known as the best in the world, but the girl has no storage for it. Then she confirms that she cannot produce anything. However, the little one manages to obtain some with her own hands. She transforms into a dragon and goes in search of the best milk that exists. 6 days later, she returns, in the farm in a hurry. Her master wants to know what she did and reveals that he was worried. A young girl was brought to the farm. She's a creature capable of producing the ingredient. Now Vale wants a compliment for finding her in a tasty recipe as well. Then the boy punches his dragon's leg, calling her an idiot. The monster girl doesn't understand and falls backward. Her master didn't want a kidnapping to happen just because of his desire. But the girl tries to explain. She reveals that, in fact, she was saved, and that's why she wanted to help as a form of her payment. One of the elves says that the girl is a satyr type of Therian throat. These communities are located in alpine areas surrounded by rocks, so it's not a place where humans can enter. But a dragon attacked the new farm girl's community. Vale emphasizes that it wasn't her. Another monster was there before her, and seemed to be after the village's treasure. It was for the same reason as when they were searching for the holy sword, Maldrishwartz, one of the Dragon Father's trials. Apparently this means that whoever attacked the village is one of the dragon girl's relatives. Then the protagonist asks if the village is okay, since these creatures are among the greatest calamities in the world. The young woman says that he was gradually cornering the city. Even when they were almost forced to give the villain what he wanted, Lady Vale arrived. Then the woman negotiated her milk in exchange for the city's liberation. The protagonist worries if his girl fought someone, but she says she needed to eliminate the competition. Besides, that guy had an inferior face and didn't deserve to be emperor. The new girl thinks about how painful it must be to repair the misbehavior for people. They'll save them when they are on the brink of death, all for something so simple in return. So through all came only to fulfill this humble wish. But Lord Sang has many feelings about it. She introduces herself as Panu and knows that he is the owner of the farm. The boy asks if she is really going to provide food for them, and Panu shows her full storage. Then the elves guarantee that they will handle it, and do not expect to receive milk of such quality. Bellrun says this is the highest quality ingredient and also very delicious. Vale is in a hurry and quickly needs something delicious made with this milk. The boy apologizes for doubting the dragon earlier, but she tells him to take it back first, and then they will process the milk. All the creatures organize themselves to start production. The result is beautiful fresh bottles of milk, and the girls immediately start drinking it. Vale almost explodes with happiness and realizes it's the best combination after a hot bath. Lord Saint thanks his gruel for enriching their diet, but thinks that maybe they need more of the species. Benny asks if there are more of this species, capable of producing food, and the girl confirms. Her village not only sells milk, but also has various methods of trading with other races. The protagonist realizes that they barter as a race too. Now the bread and pizza that the little girl loves so much will get even better. Bale gets emotional when asked if she really wants to eat these delicacies, so her master has a request for her. He wants the products to be delivered to the Satyr village. Pandu's village must be in crisis now as they have trouble managing food supplies. Suddenly Vale understands that she needs to restore Panda's village, and Lord Saint says he needs her milk. In exchange, they will send farm products to her, and also, the driving gruel will serve as a bodyguard. Moved, the milk girl says there's no way to express all the gratitude she has for him. However, Vale reminds her that everyone is expecting her cooperation. Now the protagonist celebrates all the delicious things they will be able to make with the milk. The Dryden girl doesn't quite understand the names of the ingredients, but she gets excited to help her friend. Pani was carried on the dragons back to her village, and the protagonist tells her she is free to try the bath next time. Meanwhile, everyone enjoys the refreshing ingredient after a hot bath. Now the farm can acquire daily products. But everything that the construction of the bat house brought didn't stop there. And finally we see Horkoster, near someone unknown. Santo is outside looking at the bat house construction and marveling at the result. He's called by Horkosen, who says she has something to talk about. Santo wonders if she's having trouble making the natto. She says she first needs to show him something, and out of nowhere appears with a headless body. Santo is startled. Horikosun says that this is the head of someone who did not die naturally, an angel just like her. Master Sento doesn't understand what that head is doing there. Horikosun says that this head belongs to an angel who was destroyed by the gods years ago and that she found it during an excavation. Continuing, she says she didn't find any damage to that head, meaning it can be repaired just like Santo did with her. Santor says he can't repair just the head even if he wants to. But for her, this is not a problem since she managed to unearth the other body parts of that angel, leaving Santo even more scared by this. According to her, each part belongs to a different angel, so they can put everything together and create just one. After 4,000 years, Korokosvan is excited about finally reuniting with an ally. Centro starts to feel excited about the idea of creating something and decides to accept doing it. He begins assembling the pieces, amazed at how he is managing to do this, until he finally completes it. Horror Costman thanks him for reviving that angel. They realize all the pieces are functioning, and start to reboot the angel. When she wakes up, the angel recognizes for a cost, and begins to wonder what happened to her. She can't remember if she was burned by the dragon, cut to pieces, or something even worse. Observing, they deduce that the angel has the memories of each piece of her body. They know that she's very lively, and Horror Costume deduces that her lively personality must have come from the fusion of so many personalities together. Thus, they cannot deduce who she really is. At that moment, Hermes appears and says he is there because they revived an angel. Here reminds Santo of the size of the threat reviving that angel represents, and says the right thing would be to destroy her immediately. Now with an ally, Horikostin doesn't want to abandon her, and apologizes to Santo for neglecting the protection of the Nido. She prepares to self-destruct along with a new ally, but Santo panics, pleading with Hermes not to do it. Hermes tells Santo to relax, that even he isn't eager to destroy the angel. He says that since she was patched up, she will need numerous repairs. Only then will it be possible to prevent future dangers. According to him, Zeus cannot perform this task, so it will be his brother Hephaestus, the king of craftsmanship, who will make the repairs. Explaining further, he says the first 10 angels were made by Hephaestus under the orders of Zeus and Eris. Therefore, Hephaestus will synthesize that angel to become good, as they are his masterpieces. Santo and Horikosvan accept Hermes' proposal. The angel asks what is happening, and Sandra replies that she will go with that man to the celestial realm to be repaired. And thus Hermes takes her away, bidding farewell to Santo and Hora Cosman. But before leaving, Santo calls him and asks if Hephaestus likes rice balls. Hermes responds that they are his favorite. Before saying goodbye, the angel tells Santo to prepare something for her as she will soon visit him in the bath. Santorishir's court, Kosen, saying she will be fine and will return even more beautiful than now. Stanto is at the farm, finishing maintenance on Kakashi. He comments on how much the farm has grown recently. He notices how so many different people live together. They're without conflict. He sees Madame Relina taking care of silkworms and Badami sewn clothes, everyone working together. At that moment, the spirits appear. Seeing the new clothes being made, they get even more excited. In the midst of their lively conversation, Vale appears recommending a break to eat ice cream. Sanctum Novus is Vale making progress in the village, and she excitedly tells him she named her ice cream creation Yohamo. Some comment that butter is still missing from the ice cream, but Vale doesn't mind. She says she'll remake the ice cream right away. Sometimes some problems arise, like when Redislet argues with the angel insisting she shouldn't mix her ice cream with Nado. Sento continues observing, now focusing on the work of the elves, who have created a shield made with materials from Vale's dungeons. At that moment, Prince Arawana appears and suggests a sumo match between them, but quickly says it's just a joke. Redislet says he arrived at the right time and wants him to be the guinea pig for her latest creation made with Gara Rufus's help. Prince agrees, saying that according to him, everything Redislet makes is delicious. In a corner of the farm, Plady appears offering tea to Sonto, who seems deep in thought. She says he looks tired and, speaking of fatigue, reveals she's worried about poaching. They go after Pochi to see what is happening, but when they arrive, they find this sense of petting and playing with him. When Pachi runs off, they notice that he seems strange, as if he is trying to escape from the excessive affection of the sensei. Gladys forbids the sensei from petting Pochi for a while, thinking he needs a break. Center Novus is that one way or another that farm is actually quite peaceful. Caden talks with his brother-in-law, who is also half fish out of what the formal announcement he mentioned would be. Suddenly, the young man begins to feel a strange tension in the air. The fishman then announces that he and Puffer are getting married, leaving the hero speechless. The bride enters the room bringing food when, in fact, she was supposed to bring tea. Platt thanks her for the dish, revealing that she was the one who ordered it. The bride's fiancé then says that he would like her to also participate in the conversation. Surprised, the young woman hints that she does not want the prince to talk about a certain subject. It then plays a Dicturbo shell shield on the table, which you won in the martial swimming competition. Shocked, the protagonist's wife says that the object is incredible. She explains that this competition took place among the Tritons many years ago, being a sporting martial arts festival. Such a battle stakes the pride of the participants, and while mermaids use pharmaceutical magic, mermen fight using harpoons. It is necessary to have an agile swimming method and spear handling skills. The prince's sister asks if this is his first victory. She claims that he might have just been lucky and won because of that. Irritated, the half-fish man responds that it was much more than luck, as his opponent was the shark general. He then reveals that he also defeated Master Slayer Belto Fishy in the semifinals and Master Pike in the final. Curious, Platt asks what trick he used. In response, he says that one of the secrets to success was the turbo shell. The shield is made from incredible shell, being very strong and capable of neutralizing any lethal attack. Thus, he withstood his opponent's attacks and achieved his dream. Emotional, the prince thanks Kitten for everything. Happy, the young man says that is unnecessary. His brother-in-law then asked his fiancée why she was so quiet. Excited, the young woman confesses that she went to the event to watch the competition. The hero's wife questions why she returned to the sea alone if she's a prisoner, and she responds that she wanted to cheer for the prince. But the merman reveals that the young woman was healing his injuries with potions, helping him stay into the battle. Angrily, the mermaid yells while her husband is enchanted by Puffer's determination to help the champion. Platt says that having a prisoner in public is already a problem, let alone a mermaid helping the prince. But her brother counters that a scandal in the kingdom is not the biggest problem. He reveals that even though he won the martial swimming competition to become king, and internal discomfort still troubles him, because he does not know if he truly has the ability to govern the mermaid kingdom. Kitten, consoling his brother-in-law, says that the people would feel safe under his reign as he is strong and has good relations with the demon king. Grateful, he says he is still not satisfied as he needs to have the dignity and charisma of his neighbor. For that, you will embark on a journey of pilgrimage to strengthen himself against risks. Everyone is shocked by the announcement. His fiancée shouts that she also wants to go, while his sister asks what that blue thing is. Then, angrily, she says they need him to obtain composition tools. But the man says he has already arranged his substitute. With tears in her eyes, Puffer insists on accompanying him. But her fiancé says he needs her to take care of the farm, promising that for his kingdom, he will broaden his horizons and improve his earthly skills. All she needs is patience until he returns as a man worthy of being the king of the mermaids. His sister, observing the conversation, questions if this means the prisoner will be her sister-in-law in the future. Several days pass and the moment arrives for the prince to set off on his journey. Kid hands a weapon to his brother-in-law, saying it is a lucky charm. Happy, he thanks him, but says that the weapon has a strange shape. The hero then asks him to allow an orc to accompany him as traveling with someone is important. Accepting a request, the prince asks the name of his traveling companion. Norio says is Haka, and the creature smiling says he is excited to travel with a fishman. Puffer appears and gives her beloved a necklace, asking him to keep it with him always as if it were her. Smiling, he says he will put it around his neck, then departs on his journey. Platt teasingly asks her sister-in-law if she will miss the prince. The young woman replies that long-distance relationships exist, revealing that the gift she gave him is a portable waypoint crystal pendant. It allows her to teleport to wherever her beloved is. Then, throwing something on the ground, she bids farewell and disappears. Everyone watches in disbelief at what just happened. Since teleportation is originally a spell of the demon race, the girl must have infused her alchemy into the pharmaceutical magic of the mermaid race. Intrigued, the hero's wife says that this is the power of a prodigious imprisoned witch. Smiling, her husband says that this is also the power of love. One of the other young demons questions how a mermaid mastered the teleportation spell. Meanwhile, Selena limits as it is the same spell she shed sweat and tears to master and become part of the elite. Puffer returns out of nowhere and the Dew asks if she found the prince. Smiling, she says yes. She reveals that her beloved is visiting the demon castle, which made her return to change clothes. But two demons, hearing this, say that the young woman is really making good use of the spell. Kitten appears and calls Baidami to the dressing room because he has something to show her. Inside, the hero enthusiastically presents a sewing machine. The object has a metal manipedal and sews clothes efficiently. This helps the creature perform better at her work. Demonstrating, the hero begins threading the needle, then placing his foot on the pedal. He starts sewing while the dual watches in complete shock. Holding the fabric, the young women realize that the machine really works. Satisfied with his work, the young man asks if they liked it. Impressed, Batami says that with this, no one will need to worry about master in hand sewing anymore. Testing the gift, she exclaims how precise the stitches are, making it possible to produce uniforms en masse. She then reveals that now she wants to design unique and creative clothing. The young woman then asks her lord if she can lock herself in the sewing room, because she has an idea she wants to put into practice. Several days later, she presents armor made from tan monster leather. Impressed, the elf wearing the outfit says that it is lightweight and has incredible defensive and mobility abilities. Excited, the seamstress says she also made outfits for Workout's team. The best part is a glove that is in the hand of one of the mermaids. Releasing a spell, the creature demonstrates what the object is capable of, revealing that now it is possible to integrate a mechanism within the gauntlet that emits explosive flame magic. Very happy, the creator of the pieces says she hasn't felt this way in a long time, and thanks her lord for the tool. Puffer suddenly appears and says she brought big news. Lady Astros, cheerful. The dew of demons greets the woman, stating that it has been a long time since they last saw her. Badmi starts talking about her latest creations, saying that her lord gave her a magnificent device to make clothes. The woman then says she wants her to make pieces for her as well. The teleporting mermaid reveals to everyone that the visitor is pregnant. With her mouth to gape, everyone congratulates her and asks if she's okay. She responds that she is in a stable period, but as her belly grows, she needs more suitable clothes. Then she asks if the seamstress can make her maternity dresses. Surprised, the young woman says it would be an honor, also offering to make clothes for the baby, because she wants to repay her debt from when the woman employed her as her assistant. Astruz says she has always admired her for giving up her dream of running a clothing shop in the capital to serve her. Joining the conversation, Caden says he had an idea, asking if it would be possible to sell Batmi's clothes in the demon capital. Saying that the young woman has a special talent for fashion, the woman agrees, affirming that it will be a success. She just needs to provide her with buyer contacts in the castle, so the girl can maintain her existence in secrecy. Feeling inadequate, the demon girl says she doesn't know if her work will truly be appreciated. Taking her hand, Selena asks her not to give up this time, saying that the young woman always cheered her up when she was feeling down. Now it is her turn to return the favor. Satisfy. The young seamstress says she will do her best with all her heart and soul. Happy, Plaid, and Puffer say they want to clothes too. Baby then says that given Lady Astra's situation, they might need several outfits in the future. To spare the young woman from too much work, her lord states that everyone must learn to use the sewing machine. Summoner will be necessary to expand the cotton fields and the silkworm farm, as well as introduce new systems, suggesting that Selena be responsible for operating the spinning machines, as her psychokinesis ability makes everything easier. The next day, the young hero observes the result of his cleaning the satisfaction. His wife appears, bringing rice cakes filled with spicy cod roe. Tasting them, her husband says that the filling is unusual, revealing that she thought of offering the cakes to Hephaestus, who would grant wisdom to make the sewing machine. Thus, a project teaching how to make the tool quickly emerged. Curious. Play asks what kind of relationship he has with the gods. Without answering, the young man places the fool on the altar, and thanks the god for everything. Up in the heavens, Hephaestus eats the rice cakes and says that he is the one who is grateful. Hermes appears apologizing for interrupting the meal. Explaining, Hephaestus says that the food came from a mortal to whom he gave a gift. Confused, his brother asks how that other specific matter is going. Not remembering, Hephaestus asks what he is talking about. The young god then says it's about the angel's adjustment, stating that he brought more burdens. Upon hearing that the task has already been completed, Hephaestus is surprised as a temple requires time to be built. Smiling, his brother says that what he created was not a mere temple, but an eternal labyrinth of adamantine blackthorn, revealing that the angel the young man left in his care is also ready because he was excited about this particular task. In another room, Hephaestus explains that he equipped Ne with new armaments, prioritizing convenience over destruction. Then pressing a button, he prepares to activate his creation, releasing high-dimensional mana. As she rises, she opens her eyes while Hermes watches it all. Complaining, the creature says she doesn't like waking up to see two dark gods so close. Smiling, the creator says he made no changes to her cognitive circuits, and his brother asks why. Hephaestus responds that destiny resides within the character, and it is not their place to change that. Thus, the conflicting personalities within the young angel will align, shaping a personality of her own. The god of wisdom then says he will be her guide, but the angel says that now that she's been revived, she wants to do what she pleases, asking that he also not stay too close. Irritated, Herm says that special education will be necessary for her. Since he can now return such an inattentive child to the saint of the earth, he must teach her basic manners. Hephaestus allows him to take his creation, but the angel is unwilling to leave. So using his brainbuster vertical heaven drop style technique, the wise god hurdles her down to earth. Iruan, and on his expedition says that by visiting the Demon King's palace, they have finally established something for the vast infinite world. Smiling, Puffer recalls how she was praised by the Demon King. Meanwhile, the prince, who wishes to grow like his neighbor, reveals that he will engage in various aspects of the surface world. For merfolk, a land is perceived as a dangerous and challenging place. His or companion agrees but says he can't imagine such great difficulties arising out of nowhere. Suddenly, in front of the trio, an explosion occurs. Getting up from the ground, Hermes greets everyone. Second, he is the god of wisdom and knowledge. The young man states that he has a request for the prince. Introducing Hephaestus' creation, he says that she must accompany him on his journey. Curious, the prince asks who the girl is. Explaining, the god says that she is an angel reinitialized for the first time in 4,000 years. Being a relative of a Horkostian who lives with the saint and possessing refined destructive capabilities. She just needs to grow mentally. York asks what she can do, and that God says she can destroy the world. Reflecting, the prince says that raising someone is not simple, and that she would be essential during his pilgrimage. Then, accepting the task, since with the angel on board, the journey will be more productive. Happy, Hermes decides to rename the unique creature, who will now be called Summer Kufen. Irawana says that this name perfectly matches his journey and introduces the other members of the group. Smiling, the god of wisdom bids farewell. Meanwhile, at the bottom of the ocean, merfolk debate the necessity of maintaining peace, something that was promised by the prince. One of them questions how the mermaid kingdom will continue enjoying its usual peace, since they could be invaded soon. Another merfolk suggests that they should have married Platy off to the demon king, questioning how one of the nobles could have opposed the plan. In response, he says that if both had been connected through marriage, they would have had many more problems. Thus, the decision made avoided both the best and worst outcomes. And now the priority is to make a careful political decision. Disagreeing, another man in the meeting states that they should bring Platy back, so they can act against King Magus. Otherwise, they should make Platy's sister, Enzel, a concubine of the Demon King to strengthen their relationship. His ally then says that if they do that, it will be a sign of submission, meaning they will lose without even fighting. With a growing anxiety in the Merfolk kingdom, if nothing is done, it will end up self-destructing. One of a mirthful wonders in thought where Princess Play might be. And emerging from the water, he prepares to find her at the Sync's farm. As he walks, he reflects on whether the young woman could have managed to make excuses for both humans and demons, revealing that, in any case, he must find her at all costs, to persuade her to return to the Merfolk kingdom and negotiate with the Geman region. Walking a long distance, the merman finds a large farm. He then asks a farmer if this is the same farm, and the man asks if he needs anything. In response, the young man says he wants to meet the owner, and the worker says he will call him. Hearing the call, Caden asks the Demon King what happened and who wants to see him, surprising the merman, who didn't know that was the king of creatures. Happy, the hero says that he must be King Irawana's envoy, thanking him for his presence, but the man says his name is Hendra. Norio then says he will take him to his wife, while thanking the Demon King for his service. Platy welcomes the guests and asks him to place the preparation tools in a corner. While baying, the merman comments that the Merfolk kingdom is going through a difficult time, because after the destruction of the human kingdom, it wouldn't be surprising if the demons came to attack them next. So they need the princess's return home to help. The two then asked Maddie if the story is true. In response, the Demon King says they have no reason to attack the kingdom, stating that the conflict of the human race is just a defensive war because the other side started it. So it's an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Platy then tells Hendra he can go without worry. But the man asks what that king is doing there at the farm. Explaining, the young woman says that place is welcoming, then shows the princess of the destroyed human kingdom, who is also there. Kidding adds that Madhu and Prince Arawana are also getting along, shocking the merman even more. The Demon King says that the two were friends, and that just the other day, the prince was at his home and met everyone who lived there. Thus, when the prince becomes king of the Mirthful Kingdom, 100 years of friendship with the Demon Kingdom will be established. Apologizing, the Demon King says he didn't mean to cause anxiety in the Mirthful Kingdom, but it was a matter you couldn't speak about, since before Prince Erdogan becomes king, he wants to cleanse the old system, thinking to himself. Hendra understands why everything wasn't revealed, because otherwise many would be humiliated, and the prince's plan is to hide the rebels to eliminate them. Smiling, the merman says he has no more doubts and keeping the conversation to himself will act as a mediator. Platy thanks him. Kidding asks him to stay and eat something, and his wife says that while he eats, he can tell the other mermaids how things are back home. Surprised, the young man asks if there are other mermaids living there. The young one confirms and calls Puffer, Gararufa, and Rampue. Only one appears, and Plato says one must have gone out, and the other must be immersed in her research. However, the merman already knows the merman, who arrived, which confuses the others. Hendra then shouts that she is the guard who hit him during his audience with the kick, while the young woman says he cursed the princess. then ordering him to leave immediately. Shocked, the trio questions with the should do to stop the argument. With clenched fists, the mermaid asks the princess for permission to teach the man in front of her lesson, while the man states that she should be serving time at dungeon, not living on that farm. Akira steps into the fight, asking both to calm down so his wife can explain why the young woman is not imprisoned. Going back to the past, Clady asks her husband if he remembers how Rampo ended up there. In response, the young man says that she punched a noble, questioning why the prince sent Kendra as his substitute. The princess then says that in some way, she understands why her brother did that. Since the mermaid is a former elite of the royal guard and of all the prisoners sent there, she is the most decent and sensible. Thus, if Hendra makes a move to clear the only incident the young woman committed, it will be enough. Kitten then says that if the mermaid apologizes and the merman accepts, all her sins would be wiped clean, and she could return to her post as a guard. However, the prisoner says she will not go through such humiliation, especially for someone who insulted the princess, saying that he had no sense of honor and wouldn't be getting married anywhere. Smiling, Plato says he wasn't wrong and asks Hendra how he came to that conclusion. In response, he says the words just slipped out his mouth. Angrily, Rampu says she was right and that it is the young man who should apologize, not her. Refusing, the merman says he cannot do that. Since he is a debater, he must uphold justice in his words, even if he slips up from time to time. Thus, to ensure his words do not lose power, he will not take them back, even if they try to force him using brute strength. Charging forward, the mermaid says she will shut him up with her fists, so nothing else comes out of his mouth. Hendra asks if she will resort to violence once again, but she says she is the hammer of justice, that she must punish those who disrespect the royal family. Desperate, the hero asks his wife what to do, but he agrees that they should duel. So while everyone watches, the mermaid explains that it will only be in martial arts competition and signals the start. Using their spears, Kendra and Rampu attack each other. In a series of strikes, the mermaid is almost hit, but dodges skillfully. Her opponent says that she isn't bad, while she says the same about him. The hero, impressed, states that the two really match each other. Beside him, the Demon King says he thought the merman had accepted a losing battle, but is unexpectedly holding his ground. The princess says that Hendra was born into a noble military family. The Demon King asks why she then allowed the duel. Smiling, the young woman says that she wants the children who work for her to live freely and happily, so she had to take the opportunity, that perhaps it would make Rampu resolve her impasse with Kendra. Her husband smiles and says the merman was truly wrong about what he said about her. Then he turns his attention back to the battle. The guard in the confrontation thinks that her opponent was struggling on land, but he has already adapted a lot, feeling something other than anger, excitement. Hendra cornered questions how this is possible since his training partner was the martial arts instructor Sama. Admiring the young woman's fighting style, he drops his spear and falls to his knees. Then he asks her to marry him. Everyone is in complete shock while Platy says she doesn't understand anything anymore. Later, Hendry declares his love for his beloved, while the mermaid says her heart is burning with so many beautiful words. Observing, Puffer says she only stepped out for a moment, and the young woman already became useless. Kate then asks if it's okay for her never to return to work. In response, the young woman says yes, that she is taking care of all the duties. Then she adds that fermented food is the prince's favorite, and that she will not neglect her work. However, Gera Rufra has become a doctor and Platy is always busy, so they won't be able to manage all the tasks. Reflecting, the hero fears losing manpower in the fermentation department. Any of the conversation, he goes looking for his wife. That's when someone unknown appears. Enzel introduces herself as the Witch of Secret Light, daughter of the current merfolk king Nagas and younger sister of Princess Platy. The young girl appears and asks what she is doing there, because that is a secret place that very few people know about. In response, the girl says she followed Kendra, who becomes embarrassed and apologizes for having been distracted. Irritated, the princess asks why her sister isn't at school, stating that she will have problems if she doesn't earn her credits. Shouting, the girl tells her older sisters shut up, then challenges her to a duel. Using her power, the princess attacks without thinking, throwing Enzel far away. Her husband becomes worried, but the young woman says she only hit her lightly. Standing up again, the little witch starts to cry. Through her tears, she says that her sister is mean and that she was worried about her disappearance, revealing that all the political problems of their country were passed on to her. All because Platy didn't marry the demons. Smiling, the princess says she didn't abandon the little one. Thus they reconcile with a hug. Kidden says it's a relief because he had no idea what would have happened if the fight had continued. Trying to calm her sister, the princess says she doesn't need to worry so much. But the little one gets irritated at being treated like a child. Patting Enzel's head, the young woman says she will tell her everything she needs to know. The other two mermaids watch the situation with smiles, when suddenly the young witch's legs transform into octopus tentacles. Her older sister, Shock, says that this is a rebound effect from the transformation drug. Then she asks where the girl got the substance. In response, the little one says she made it herself. Angry Platy says that kind of potion isn't something a student should be making because if something goes wrong, side effects appear. Stad, the little one says she did everything right, following the recipe her sister left behind. But the princess says that if she thinks everyone can do something just because they have a recipe, it wouldn't be called witches. Her husband asks if she's okay. But full of rage, she says she needs to start working to remember the recipe that alleviates the symptoms. And even if she manages, it will take time for the girl to regain her mermaid half. So she will stay with them and work by helping the others. Then she asks them not to go easy on her, as her sister used to invade her lab and cause terrible messes. Puffer then suggests that the little witch be their assistant, since under the guidance of high-level magic pharmacists, the girl would learn a lot. Rampu says this will be beneficial for everyone. As teachers, they will also learn to teach better. Platy is happy with the idea and drags her sister away. The little one then became part of the farm. Carmen started practicing her magic skills. She gets frustrated when an attempt to use her charisma power on two wolves fails. Her older sister appears and orders her to start working instead of playing. Unsatisfied, the young one asks if those tasks will really help her improve in medicinal magic. That's when she meets the princess of the human world, and they immediately become friends, irritating Platies since they won't stop singing. Days pass, and it seems like everyone on the farm has learned how to use transfer magic, thanks to Puffer, who made the magic potions out of love through the teachings of the sensei. Platy says that now even she, a mermaid, can use it, asking Kitten if he also wants to learn, but he refuses. In total, there are 4 transfer points in front of the sensei's cave, at the great public bath and near the farm. Vale then appears and tells the hero not to worry as she's taking care of security with traps. Since the land is expanding along with the number of people, the young man thanks her. The young dragon then reinforces that if something goes wrong with the transfer points, she will be notified. Selena appears, irritated, and asks why everyone is using transfer magic. In response, the mermaid princess says it would be great if things continued this way, since it would allow them to reach the demon capital. Worried, the girl says she understands that point, but it is still dangerous. Since, with more people coming in the future, there is no guarantee that someone with bad intentions won't misuse the magic system. Additionally, she says it is necessary to keep an eye on the magical lockbreaker, which confuses the hero. Explaining, she says that it's an illegal magician who analyzes and disables codes created by magic, coming up with the idea to reinforce security. You know Vale is already doing so. Quickly using her power, Selena increases the number of security code digits from 176 to 437, saying that it is possible to increase the number of codes without reducing authentication speed up to that limit. Then she reveals that she also inserted traps in case someone tries to analyze the code illegally. The person will get trapped, and if they keep stepping on the same phrase, they will end up triggering a technique taught to her by the undead king. This trap will set the intruder on fire. Surprised, the farm owner says he didn't know these possibilities existed. And, listening to his wife, he says that the young woman is just bringing too much worry, so she will now be called Incompetent Selena. Confused, the demoness asks if that is a compliment or an insult, but Plato says the name suits her. Holding the young woman's hands, the hero says that he is counting on her now. Later, she tells her partner that she received a second name, and Beidami asks if the sink is recognizing her strength. She says she wouldn't feel right if that were the case while training how she would introduce herself to enemies to protect the farm. Or Kubo will rise at the farm, is shocked that the structure has everything, including transfer magic. Kitten appears and asks what the reason for his visit is. Gathered together, the orcs reveal that they have been thinking about future work problems and wish to make a request. They want to build a ship for fishing. This would help the mermaid princess and increase the stock of fish. Thinking about it, the young woman agreed, while her husband asks if the creature knows how to build a ship. The orc shakes his head, stating that he only knows about the ship Lady Astros used to come here. Kneeling, he begs the young hero to grant them the wisdom of shipbuilding. Smiling, he says that there are true workers. Then he agrees to help them build it. Sometime later, they build a massive ship. Emotional, or Kubo says, that he almost lost hope when he heard that a ship could only move with magic. But luckily, it can also move with a big cloth, and something called a rudder. Excited, Kid N gives instructions and asks the group not to go too far from the coast, and to eat lemons to avoid scurvy. His wife then says he doesn't need to worry so much, advising that if they get lost, they should just ask a mermaid along the way. And in case of emergency, just use transfer magic. Watching the group depart, the hero says, pulling his hair, that he should have made a big flag for the ship. 3 days later, the orcs find themselves lost, unsure of which way leads back to the farm. One of them says to just use the compass, but the leader says you forgot to ask how to read it. But moreover, they don't have enough fish, so they can't return home yet. Or Kubo decides to help with the fishing, but one of his companions says he is too noisy. Using all his strength, he pulls the fishing rod and realizes he has caught something. With an angry expression, a long-haired mermaid emerges, leaving everyone surprised. Then the group celebrates their leader's feat, saying that now they can return since they achieve a great result. With a wicked smile, the mermaid says she felt a strange presence and approached, asking how they dared to fish in such a manner, announcing that they must now face the vengeance of Zoth Scylla, the Witch of the Abyss. The orcs say that's not what they were thinking at all, while the captured mermaid asks if they are orcs. After confirmation, she says she didn't expect to see talking orc sailing, asking if that ship is a demon ship. Regretful, the group leader asks if the woman can forgive them. She says yes, as long as they serve as test subjects for her magic potion, because she is researching how to transform mana into life. This will create allied monsters like them. The process is called heresy, and the Mermaid Kingdom wants to capture her because of it. So she's been on the run ever since. The woman also says that if her opponent is a monster like them, she won't feel guilty for what happens. Then she releases bizarre creatures and orders them to attack the group of sailors. The evil mermaid says that the orcs have cursed their own fate, even though they are against eliminating another being also born from mana. The group decides they have no other choice but to fight. A battle begins and the orcs with their weapons throw all the creatures back into the sea. Intrigued, the mermaid questions how this is possible, since this was her latest and highest performing experiment. Angry, she says she cannot have lost a mere orcs. What the quartet says is that they are warrior orcs, a species that evolved thanks to Santa-sama. They have even evolved twice into orc lagas. Shocked, the mermaid cannot believe that not only was she fished up, but she was also defeated by such creatures, revealing that she cannot return to the sea happily. Thus breaking the vase with another potion, she declares that she will sink the ship. Rampage appears with his skull-like face and enormous tentacles, while his creator orders him to attack the group. And showing his sharp teeth, she says she regrets that they have become her enemies. What, to her surprise, her creation attacks her. Holding her with his tentacles, the giant octopus prepares to make her into fish food, while she begs him to stop. By sheer luck, the group of orcs intervened. With a coordinated attack, they send the creature flying away, while the mermaid falls into Orkobo's arms. Getting up from his embrace, she asks what he is planning. In response, the leader says that even if she falls into the sea, falling with such force must hurt. Back at the farm, Platt announces to her husband that the sailors have returned. Kinnan steps outside and sees the quartet approaching with one of the orcs carrying a mermaid in his arms. Curious, the hero asks if she was fished up, but the leader says that they got lost and the mermaid helped them. The princess recognizes her, and Zoff says she recognized the identification magic potion carved into the ship. Happy, the hero thanks the woman for her help, but she says there's no need, as it was the orcs who helped her. She then asks what kind of place this is, with goblins pulling out grass and large mutant lichens. Smiling wickedly, the mermaid says this place is overflowing with materials for her research. Thus, she asks for permission to stay. Platt agrees and asks if she doesn't find it difficult to move with a tail. Then she hands her a transformation potion. The witch asks if she's sure, and Platt says the ingredients are easy to obtain. Grateful, the woman drinks the potion and gains legs. She then says she needs to buy clothes before starting her research. The hero asks if she has no place to return to. His wife explains that the mermaid has a huge lab at the bottom of the ocean, full of living experiments, so she should hurry back home before any of them escape. The mermaid agrees and says she will return later. Bring you long things she has cultivated. Before leaving, she asks Orkubo not to forget about her. In response, the orc says you will not forget her at all, leaving the hero and the princess curious about the kind of relationship they have. While doing her chores, Puffer discovers Zoth's visit. She reveals that she would have liked to speak with her. Play details are now to worry as the mermaid will return. Kitten asks how they know each other, and the young woman says the witch was her teacher, who taught her the basics of magical medicine. Excited, she adds that she will ask for advice from the witch next time, now that she leads people. Enzo listens to the conversation and thinks that, as if it wasn't enough to have 4 of the 6 crazy witches here, now the Abyss Witch is joining too. She then reveals the existence of the Witch of Darkness, wondering if she will show up at any moment. In her mind, she questions whether occurrences like talking orcs and goblins, visits from the Demon King, and other such things are normal. Not to mention that the dishes made by Caden are delicious, and the owner of all this is her sister's husband. Having a tantrum, the young girl says it's not fair that all these things only happen to her sister, revealing her jealousy. Enzel then decides that she will prove herself better than Platt. She advances through constant conflict, driven by the principle that the strong must fight and the absolute certainty of her victory. Alerted by a sudden noise, she turned around and demanded to know who would dare to mock her. Armed with a pair of swords, the scarecrow returned her steady gaze. With a grin, she charged forward, intending to treat the creature as her personal punching bag. As her determination to fight surges to an entirely new level, the scarecrow effortlessly evaded the incoming strike. This development left the girl absolutely incensed. As she pursued the creature, The young girl demanded that it face her in a fair fight. She remains focused on growing her power until she can finally surpass her sister once and for all. She lost her footing, tripping over her own legs. The girl lost her footing and fell flat on her face. Regislit arrives on the scene at that moment, observing that the girl hasn't lost her sweet nature. She acknowledged that Mr. Scarecrow was a formidable opponent to contend with. Enzel acted on a sudden impulse, issuing a challenge right then and there. Taken aback, Enzel remarked that the girl spoke with the confidence of someone who had done this before. She confirmed his suspicion, stating that she was also among the challengers facing Mr. Scarecrow. He had successfully claimed victory in 3 of his 6 encounters. The young mermaid questioned her motives, and Redislets explained that her actions were necessary due to the monsters inhabiting the farm. Defeating them should be well within her capabilities. Feeling relieved, the princess's sister noted that if they shared the same objective, they should work together. It was clear that joining forces was their best course of action. The pair charged forward to challenge Mr. Scarecrow once more, this time engaging him in a 2-on-1 battle. Much to their astonishment, they realized the number of scarecrows had also increased. Their population continued to grow in tandem with the expansion of the land. As they clash with the creatures, the 2 young women find themselves completely outmatched. 10 minutes of chasing their opponents had left them completely winded. Ultimately, they decided to throw in the towel and bring their training session to a close. A sudden shout rings out, alerting them that monsters have begun to appear. Alerted by a peculiar noise, they began to wonder what kind of creature could be responsible. Kubo and the rest of the group finally encountered the creature. The airborne target proved to be a persistent nuisance. Occasionally, he loses his way and finds himself wandering outside the dungeon's limits. Following Ali's suggestion, the plan was to borrow weapons from the elf. At that moment, they noticed someone positioned dangerously close to the monsters, making it impossible to launch a safe attack. The girl let out a scream as the flying monster prepared to strike them with its claws. Fortunately for the pair, one of the scarecrows stepped forward to intervene. He bore the full brunt of the impact. Simultaneously, the second fighter leaps into the air with both blades drawn to launch a counterattack. He caught sight of the damaged scarecrow. Overwhelmed by panic, the 2 girls broke down in tears. Through tears, Enzel admitted that they were powerless to do anything but apologize. Kittens appeared out of nowhere, announcing that he had already finished the repairs. This left both young women completely stunned by the turn of events. The pair pulled the little monsters into a warm embrace, clearly relieved to have them back. Platy stepped into view and called out to her sister. She would immediately realize the depth of the trouble she was in. The princess pointed out that they had overstepped their bounds, all while neglecting their official responsibilities. While defending themselves against a monster's attack, the group ended up destroying a nearby scarecrow. As their punishment, they were tasked with threshing a massive amount of rice. Enzel's older sister reappeared and explained that the straw they held belonged to Mr. Scarecrow, urging them to work diligently. Accepting the punishment, the 2 of them shared a smile. They recognized that the only way to achieve their goals was to continue pressing forward. The story shifts to the former capital of the Demon Kingdom. The undead king finally made his appearance. He declared himself the rightful master of the ruined dungeon. Roughly 5 centuries ago, his first transcendence transformed him into a flawless, immortal being. The capital was restructured to facilitate the free flow of mana, ultimately converting the entire city into a dungeon. Holding him responsible for the tragedy, the residents eventually abandoned the area, leaving it completely deserted. He found himself questioning the circumstances that led to him becoming the undead king. He then proclaimed that every corner of the world, the land, the sea, and the sky, would eventually fall under his rule. Yet there remains a single hurdle that even a ruler of his standing cannot surpass. With the divine barrier seemingly gone, demons have begun to move in and occupy the land. In search of answers, the king resolved to track down the current demon king. By eliminating him, he intended to transform the entire population into his servants. Throwing open the gates and signaling the charge, he declares that the eternal reign of the undead Emperor King has finally begun. Unfortunately, a sudden explosion occurred, causing him and his servants to vanish instantly. As the expedition continued, Arowana looked on in disbelief as Samba Kufan discharged a powerful bazooka-like weapon. He scolded the young woman, reminding her of his earlier warning that they were only there to observe. She noted the group's threatening nature, and Puffer agreed, revealing that they were actually preparing to launch an invasion of the outside world. Had they decided to strike, the situation would have quickly spiraled out of control. Reflecting on the situation, the Merfolk prince admitted that attacking them in such a manner had been truly unavoidable. York then explained that the undead army was bound to reappear. If they fail to intervene, their numbers will rapidly swell, spreading like a swarm of locusts. Visibly shaken, the merfolk asked his fiancée if she had a solution in mind. She then requested the angel to prepare the man of cannon once more. Following the young woman's command, they opened fire on the dungeon. This triggered another massive explosion. Her companion suggested that blasting through the outer walls would help improve the castle's ventilation. Haka warned that weapons alone wouldn't be enough to stop them all, insisting they would have to eliminate those emerging from the gates with their own hands. Upon returning to the farm, they suddenly find themselves under attack. Sensing the shift in the air, the other undead king realized that trouble was fast approaching. He then briefed Caden and the Demon King on the events that had transpired within the dungeon. Upon Puffer's return, the king grew concerned and asked him to explain what had happened. She explained that an army of the undead had been attempting to launch an invasion. They were forced to eliminate everyone, including the military commander. The young woman confirmed that everyone was out of harm's way, and while the Demon King was pleased to hear it, the hero immediately inquired about the current state of the capital. Sensei explains that the commander of the army is known as the Emperor. As they spoke, the Demon King concluded that the man was likely a former ruler and his own ancestor. The undead king claimed he had never crossed paths with the man or his army. He then explained that every member of his species possesses the innate ability to wield magic. In this way, they were able to share their findings with one another. However, the silence from some reveals that even immortal kings find it difficult to get along with one another. The hero inquired if that exchange was how Sensei learned about the incident, and Sensei confirmed his suspicion. Visibly moved, the Demon King expressed his gratitude and asked how he could repay them, though the young man insisted that no reward was necessary. As Matthew's wife prepares for the arrival of their child, the community expresses a collective hope that he and his companions can finally live in peace. Wiping away his remaining tears, the king expressed his gratitude once more before departing for home. As Mac plummeted, a new figure appeared and announced that the appointed time had finally arrived. Gathered in a hall after 38 years, the Vampire Alliance revealed that they were orchestrating a new plot. Mosquito expressed his gratitude to everyone for answering his summons and gathering at the location. He breaks the news that both the Divine Barrier and the Undead Emperor have vanished without a trace. While the rest of the group was left in disbelief, the vampire maintained that this outcome was actually a favorable development. He then proposed that if they could successfully recruit the Demon King's army as their subordinates, this would grant them the power to eliminate every other race simultaneously. With every obstacle removed, their path to global domination was finally clear. Without warning, a bright light began to shine from behind them. This was immediately followed by a sudden explosion. Outside, Samuel Kufan celebrated another successful strike with her bazooka, even as the prince cautioned her to be more careful. With their plan in motion, the group began preparing to eliminate the last of the vampires. While at the farm, Badimi presented a piece of clothing. She felt a wave of uncertainty, questioning whether her creation would truly turn out as she hoped. Astros made his presence known and requested permission to enter. This unexpected development caught the young woman completely off guard. With a smile, she noted the woman's impeccable timing, as she had just finished sewing a garment for the baby. Clearly impressed, the expectant mother noted that the design seemed quite practical and easy to wear. The seamstress then inquired if any of her other garments required further alterations. The woman responded by explaining that she had already listed the other garments for auction, keeping their true source a secret. This left the young woman in a state of total agitation. Lady Astrius recalled how the merchant Jax was left speechless by the sophisticated craftsmanship of the garments. She promptly agreed to mediate the clothing sales and proposed the idea of holding an auction. This was done to ensure that a larger number of people would have the opportunity to make a purchase. Failing to do so would risk alienating the other patrons, potentially leading to a significant loss in revenue. Ultimately, every single item was sold for the highest possible price. In disbelief, the talented young woman admitted she couldn't fathom how the lady could be so generous. Despite all her efforts, she won't stand to gain anything from it. The woman replied that she felt fulfilled now that the world had finally acknowledged her talent. She then mentioned that the clothes she sent to someone special should have arrived by now. Meanwhile, in another area, a group of armored knights attempts to fight off a massive dragon, but is quickly forced to retreat. One of them is gripped by the sudden fear that his journey will come to an end right there. He pleaded with Balaam, urging him not to lose hope just yet. Their only objective is to keep moving until the Demon King's army finally arrives. His companion suggests that they separate and head in different directions. The young man then accused him of using the role of bait as a convenient excuse to escape on his own. The demon confirmed that his friend was a promising aristocrat, suggesting he would likely remain safe from harm. However, the young man voiced his disagreement and asked him to stop speaking that way. A public announcement the other night declared that the war had ended, and that the Demon King's army had been repurposed as a monster extermination force. He emphasized that his friend had a more significant future ahead, one that required him to establish his military career, retire, and eventually settle down to start a family. Mid-sentence, he suddenly loses his footing and collapses to the ground. Balaam urged Ola to disregard his safety and focus on making her escape. The dragon proved to be faster, easily overtaking the horse and snatching the young man from his saddle. Convinced that his life was over, his only regret was never receiving the Demon King's acknowledgement. The dream he once pursued had now faded into a distant memory. The truth was eventually revealed. He had already fallen. She had completely vanished from his sight the moment Astros became Empress. The young woman's disappearance left them with nothing but questions about her whereabouts. At the same time, his companion struggles to force the dragon to let him go. Abruptly, the dragon's face came into view. He collapsed straight to the ground. Without warning, the Demon King materialized directly behind Balaam. With a low growl, the dragon releases the young man from its jaws. Commending them for their hard work, the king checked to see if they were doing all right. Oba confirmed the situation, noting that the dragon's fangs are sharp enough to pierce straight through armor. However, upon closer inspection, they realized that not a single mark had been left behind. His friend was left completely stunned by the turn of events. The young lieutenant explained that his mother had given him the outfit, though he was unsure where she had purchased it. Musing aloud, the king noted that the fabric was derived from the farm's insects. This defense seemed capable of repelling not only dragon magic, but their physical fangs as well. The two dumb men listen, but Zeden says he knows nothing. Only that love is the greatest thing. Valim says he wants an outfit like that too, and the trio prepares to go home. At the farm, Asterisk tells Badamine that the armor she made suited the lieutenant well. This makes the young woman happy, wishing that he stays safe until they meet again. Here, if you don't want to miss the activate the notification bell. Time on Todd's channel.